I will now call to order the January 2022 Clackamas County Board of Commissioners business meeting. Gary, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Smith. First, our staff support today, Shannon Bays, Clerk to the Board, Stephen Madcore, County Counsel, and from our Public and Government Affairs team, Garrett Teague and Rich Marvin. Roll call, Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here. Thank you very much. I will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everyone. We are holding this meeting virtually. If you've joined us via Zoom for this meeting and are interested in providing public comment, we will provide you regarding how to do that when the time is right. General public comment will be taken at the usual allotted time. As always, the public is welcome to sign up to testify. Registration for public comment via Zoom is available online. I would like to remind our participants, including staff, elected officials, and members of the public, we will be enforcing Robert's Rules of Orders during the business meeting. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. We have 3 scheduled public hearings today. I anticipate a long meeting, but we will take a break at the natural time, 5 to 10 minutes break, and then we will reconvene when it's appropriate. Gary, can you introduce the first item, please?
Yes, Chair Smith. So we have, as you mentioned, 3 public hearings. The first public hearing is approval of a board order 2022-04 for the annexation to Clackamas County Service District Number 1, CL 21-007. Ken Martin is our boundary consultant. We will bring him in the room. If we could wait just a moment, please, commissioners.
Chair, would you also like Jeffrey Munns in the room?
Yes, yes, Shannon, please. Jeffrey Munns from our County Counsel's office. Ken, if you can hear us, would you please go ahead and give your brief presentation?
Yeah, this is an annexation to the service district. It's another small property inside the city of Happy Valley, 0.39 acres. They just need sewer service for the existing dwelling, and we'd recommend approval.
Thank you, Ken. Do commissioners have any qualifying questions or comments at this time?
No hands raised, Chair.
And do we have anybody in the public, Shannon, who would wish us to testify today?
I have no one registered for this particular item.
Okay, I opened the public hearing. We see none. I'm reading from my script, commissioners. Yes, did I hear somebody say something?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I will now close the public hearing on this matter. And any other questions from my commissioners? Seeing none, I will accept a motion, and the language is in your script.
I move. Go ahead. I move for approval of the board order 2022-04 for the annexation to Clackamas Service District 1.
Second.
Commissioner Shull has moved for the approval of board order 2022-04 annexation to CD Service District 1, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Shannon, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Shull?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Gary, what's next?
Thank you, Chair. Next is another public hearing. This is approval of board order 2022-05 for the annexation to Clackamas County Service District Number 1, CL 21-008. Ken Martin, would you please go ahead?
Yeah, this is a 1 acre annexation, again, inside the city of Happy Valley on 172nd. They're redoing an intersection there, so this needs to go into the district to provide for eventual redevelopment. After they redo the intersection, of Scouters Mountain on 172nd. We'd recommend approval.
Thank you, Ken. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments to make on this? I will now open a public hearing. Shannon, do we have anybody in the chat?
We have no one registered for this item, Chair.
Okay, well, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and I will accept a motion. I believe we have language in our script.
Well, I move for approval of board order 2022-05 for the annexation to Clackamas County Service District Number 1, CL 21-008.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has made a motion to approve the board order 2022-05 into the Clackamas County Service District 1, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Shannon, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, commissioners. That was easy. Next up may not be so easy. Gary, what do we have up next?
Thank you, Chair Smith, and thank you, Ken Martin. We will take you out of the room. Next, the third and final public hearing today is consideration of a petition for the formation of a special district under ORS Chapter 266 to be called the Hoodland Park District. This is a continuation from the public hearing board that you first opened on January 6, 2022. We'll begin with Jeffrey Munns from County Council and perhaps Stephen Madcore, County Council, to give a quick update on where we're at. Please go ahead, Jeff and/or Stephen.
Thank you. Jeffrey Munns, Assistant County Council. As Gary just mentioned, this is a continuation of the public hearing that was opened. This would be the second meeting, but the third week in a process that can go up to 4 weeks, but I have a busy meeting next week. So what you are considering today is public testimony on the formation of the Hoodland Park District under ORS Chapter 266. This would be an independent park district with its own elected board, separate from the county. The Board of County Commissioners' role in this process is to take public testimony and determine, in accordance with ORS 199.462, whether the area could be benefited by the formation of the district. At the conclusion of this public hearing, you may accept, reject, or modify the petition, and that needs to be in the form of an order. You I recommend that you close the public hearing today unless you determine that there is additional information that you need. And once you close the public meeting, you can decide how you wish to proceed as far as accepting, rejecting, or modifying. But then I would recommend that you put this back on your agenda in the future for a discussion item to discuss the findings that you would include in the order, and then approve the order reflecting your decision. The timelines that we are looking at is that we have to complete this process and approve the ballot language if it is approved or modified by February 25th of this year, so that can be published for notice. And then the final noticed ballot language would have to be filed by March 17th. So a little time, but it goes quick. So any questions?
There are no hands raised.
Stephen, would you speak to our timeline on this?
Chair, you have to close the public hearing today. That is by statute. So we're up against the deadline on closing the public hearing. So all testimony for or against must be received today. You could make a decision today to whether to accept, reject, or modify, or you could just close the public hearing. And like Jeff said, you have up until February 25th. If you were to refer this to the ballot, that's the deadline to get the ballot language and everything finalized. So, and I know next week you have a very short meeting, so you won't be able to deliberate next week, most likely. But if you wanted to bump it to the week beyond that for a discussion item, you could. Or if the commissioners are in agreement, or at least 3 of you today, on how to move forward, you could make that determination today as well.
Chair Smith, Commissioner Savas has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. So Mr. Madcore, can you tell me, you explained to us what our options are as a Board of County Commissioners. Can you explain to us what the options are for the petitioners?
The petitioners have petitioned for a parks district with the geographic parameters in the petition, and they proposed a tax rate as well of 67 cents per 1,000. They provided a feasibility study. They obtained significant signatures, to get before you. They could present it as is. They could concede to a modification. They could withdraw the petition. It's entirely up to them what their opportunities are and options are.
Okay, and their timeline to do any of those three that you outlined?
Today?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from commissioners on this? And we're going to be flexible on this, commissioners. Gary Linkus is the attorney up next, correct, Shannon? And I have allowed him 20 minutes to present. I have talked to him privately. I've talked to other people privately, and maybe you have too. And so we're going to allow him to present, and then commissioners, I'm going to, at that, when he's finished, you can ask questions or have points of clarification after that. Shannon, can you bring Gary in? Hi, Gary, this is Tootie Smith. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
20 minutes about, if you can, and then commissioners may want to ask you some questions.
You bet.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I kind of wanted to do was make sure that as I covered this, that I answered a lot of the questions that were asked at the very first meeting. Is sort of my goal, but to kind of give you an idea of the thinking on this side of the table. And I think one of the critical things is the issue of why government camp is in. And what I have to go back and look at, and one of the things that we first started looking at very seriously was realizing this is statutorily controlled. One of the comments I do want to make right up front is that there's been some comments that this is taxation without representation. That's simply not true. All of these statutes that sort of drive this process were passed in the legislature in Oregon. Those people are the Congress, the senators and the representatives down there are elected by a variety of districts, different kinds of voting districts. But everyone elected those people, and it's the people in Salem that wrote most of these things and developed the criteria that we use. And so when I looked at it, I focused on, there's sort of three primary statutory guidelines. There's 198, chapter 198 with special districts generally. 199 is sort of some of the things about what a boundary commission could do. And then of course, 266. So when I first started looking at this, and as I think Steve knows, thanks to your county council, this was a new boat for me to and I thought it was one that floated. I didn't realize I had to row so hard to make it work, because but I do live in this community. I've got 9 grandkids, so it seemed like a worthy thing to do. What really I focused on was that in the boundary commission or in the statute, there was a statute at 198. 10 that talked about how you can modify this thing. And so it looks like you have the ability to come up with and working with us to develop a different, we've given you a preliminary proposal, but the question is it, do you believe it's going to work, or do you believe needs to be modified? The one thing I wanted to point out to you is that it's very specifically the criteria. There's only 4 criteria that you have to consider. And that's set forth. It's kind of, you work your way to it. It's identified in 198.805, but like many statutes, it refers you to another statute for the criteria. But it's, are we consistent with the local comprehensive planning for the area? Are we economic, demographic, and social trends in this area? Projections pertinent to our proposal, and past and prospective physical development of the land that would directly or indirectly be affected by the proposal. And I want to note right off the bat with the idea of government camp in Wapanesha was that commissioners may not modify the boundaries to exclude from the proposed district land that in the judgment of the board could be benefited by inclusion in the proposed district. And that's at 198-805-1A. So the question really is, when you look at should we be taking government camp or Wapanesha out of this, the question for you to be asking yourselves is, could they be benefited? And that word struck me when I looked at the statutes, as the statutes aren't saying that they shall be benefited or they must be benefited with the initial proposal. It's simply, could they be benefited by being included in this system in the park district? So that was sort of something that I felt that we may be able to show, and that's the consideration that you have, that government camp could be benefited. So when the primary thing of what I focused on when trying to help the park district develop, the boundaries and what were they going to do, I looked at, number one, we've got to be consistent with your comprehensive plan. That's the critical thing for us to do. And even in the, I want to go back and even the legislature in its findings said, one of the critical things for why you do these boundary commissions is that you have lots of land use design, but you don't necessarily specify who's going to take care of it and who's going to do it. And the idea of the boundary commission is for you to develop and create sort of single source responsibilities to take care of a particular aspect of your land use planning. And that's right in there, the ORS 199, right up front. It talks about what are the policies of this. And the idea behind the Boundary Commission is to promote efficiency and economy by providing the widest range of services in a manner that encourages and provides planned and well-ordered efficient development without having multi-district services, multi-organizations involved in it. And that's real important in this community because we do have people that are opposed to the park district because they think the county ought to be doing this and not them. And I think that's a problem that you have, is that it was difficult for you to maintain this thing. It's out on the perimeter. We don't have a municipality, we're an unincorporated area, but we're looking at, we need to be responsible and start helping you to meet your goals if we expect them to be there. We can't always look to you, the Clackamas County, to take care of every little thing that we have out here that we want. So I looked at the criteria in your plan, and what we're looking at is statewide planning goal 8, which has to do with our recreational area. In your comprehensive plan in chapter 9, you talk about the fact that in your findings, consideration must be given to various methods of financing the provisions for adequate park and recreation facilities and programs in the urban parks. A park and recreation district would probably be the best solution. That's from your comprehensive plan. So we looked at that and said, okay, well, can we be part of that solution? And you have a very specific thing about the policy there, is that it's to develop a district that it does this. You initiate a park district which has recreation programs, coordinates the use of physically operated recreation facilities, provides access to recreation services for all county residents, attempt to meet recreational needs of all groups, serve as many different interest groups as possible, keep participation fees as low as possible, while at the same time trying to recoup some of the money. So that was your guidelines that we started working on. In your Mount Hood community plan, you designate 3 urban areas: Government Camp, Rhododendron, and the Welch's-Weemy area. If you look at in your Mount Hood comprehensive plan for the Welch's-Weemy area, you have specifically encouraged development of recreational facilities and encouraged developments of a shuttle bus system to provide access to the ski areas. So one of the things you're asking from this community and the lower community is to help facilitate getting people up to the mountain to go skiing. So we look at that in terms of that socioeconomic ties between us and government camp, and we say, hey, they recognize that part of how we help that community, you're asking us in your comprehensive plan, can we pitch in and help you do that? The other thing that came up was the fact that when you start talking about in your Mount Hood comprehensive plan, section 10D says in open space policies is to specify, you specify public and community use areas for public and private recreation, use structures, including ski facilities, ice skating arenas, indoor and other outdoor athletic and sports facilities in government camp. That's in your comprehensive plan. So what did the chief petitioners do? In November 9th of 2019, they actually met with a government camp CPO that was well received. And that's where the idea of the skating rink came up again, was in their CPO meeting. Regina Lithgow, I've asked her to submit to you the email exchange between her and Mr. Renard, who was the president of the CPO. But let me read it to you. Thank you for reaching out and being at our meeting. I felt the idea was well received. I'd encourage you to pursue the idea of acquiring the Forest Service compound in government camp and plotting a long-term goal for this community, for the community park development, that space as part of your, and they want us to use their space, part of your proposal and website. In addition to ODOT, this property is adjacent to ODOT across from Summit. Do you know the area I'm referring to? It will probably be free land like the Dorman Center, and the plan will win you government camp votes. I'll forward your request for government camp people who might be interested in running to be on the board. It is hard for us since we have a lot of homeowners, but only a few residents. Does one have to be an official resident to run for the board? Question mark. Thanks again, Nick. So that was the reason that we included government camp in this process. And so it wasn't, I think, Ms. Smith, you had mentioned are you cherry picking here? What's the logic of having these guys included in this thing? And for us, the answer is no. This was an active participation by them. And it was us trying to comply with your comprehensive plan, your Mount Hood community plan of suggesting these things. So this is where we came up with government camp being included in the process. Now, obviously, you're hearing lots of things from people in government camp that they don't want to be there. But the question is could they benefit? And so what I looked at in terms of that statute where you have to decide, well, could they benefit up there or not? The arguments saying they could benefit are these. That the most recent testimony from both CPO representatives was that government camp wants to be left out now, but when you come up with a project that includes us, we can opt back in. So what they're proposing is that we develop a park district. We don't use their revenue base, but at the same time, we work on developing a park district or some project for them with our revenue sources down here. And I assume they would want participation in what it is we decided to do up there, but they don't want to be part of the tax base that supports the development of whatever it is that they want up there. I think that's kind of sort of the have your cake and eat it. They're getting everything without spending any money. But what that does tell me is that that's an indication to me from both CPO representatives. They recognize that they could be benefited by the park district. One of the things I do want to comment on is, there's the chief petitioners, believe that the skating rink is a viable long-term project for up there. And here, they're not talking about a huge skating arena. They look more toward the idea of what, if you're familiar with Sun River's sort of a recreational skating rink. That's also a pay to play that would help support the park district in terms of being able to meet its needs. And I think you all know that the huge growth in what goes on up there in terms of the visitors that come to the area. And I think that's critical for you to remember. Goal 8 doesn't talk about just providing recreational services for residents. It talks about residents and visitors. And I think that's one of the other things that we look at that it gets totally missed by the survey that was done by the CPO. The CPO and government camp provided you with what the local residents up there say. They had nothing, no consideration of the mass number of visitors they have up there, which is huge. And so one of the things that we wanted you to kind of focus on when you talk about could you benefit, this is a real reality for our community down here. When we started talking about planning a skate park, we know that there are thousands of kids that come to the mountain for summer ski camps. Not all of them are staying at the summer ski camps that are provided by the local providers up in Wapanesha and up on Mount Hood at Timberline. A lot of them are ski clubs that come from Colorado. They come from as far away as Vermont out here to train in the summertime. And what they do, and this is invariably every single day in the summer, the skiing time up there is from about 7 to 1. After that, it's too hot, the snow's too lousy. Those kids that do not belong to one of the camps up there come down and use our school facilities to play sports and to do dry land training. That's invariable. At any given day during the summer, you will find down there anywhere from maybe 20 to 50 or 60 kids from ski camps that are using our school grounds to do dry land training, or they're playing soccer or frisbee or whatever. What we knew because of that constant trend, and that's a trend that's been going on for years in our community. We knew that if we build a skateboard park that's right across the street with easy access, not across Highway 26, but just right across Salmon River Road, that has a skate park, we're going to have to build it with that in mind, that during those times in the summer, it's going to be full in the afternoon with kids from all over the United States that are here training at ski camps. And that's the reality. So when we looked at developing the skateboard park, we saw that as being, hey, look, this is an Olympic sport. It's extremely popular. We know that all these kids tend to be skateboarders and are going to play. It's silly for us to think that we're going to try to keep those kids out of the park because we're there for visitors as well. So we think that's a benefit to government camp, that they could benefit from the fact that because many of those ski camps are staying in rentals up in government camp. So they get up early in the morning, they go skiing, then they turn right around, come back, eat lunch, they come down the hill. Because if you have a bunch of kids, I think you know, you got to have something for them to do. And we really see that the pump track and the skateboard park are going to be filled with those kids in the summertime. So that was kind of one of the things that once again, why we felt that, hey, they could benefit up there. We feel that's a huge benefit to government camp to provide for those kids that aren't members of those expensive camps up there. They can come down and use our skateboard park for free. And I do want to tell you that if you look at the summer ski camp, which is one of the biggest local camps up there, they have a huge skateboard park, but you have to be in their facility paying them money to use their skateboard park. But here's what I do see from the questions that were asked. One of the concerns that we also have is that in your proposal, as I mentioned, you want, hey, service from us with the ability to provide transportation. We put that in. We have a turnaround. We have extra parking. We have all of that to help people catch that bus and get up there. The last couple of things I want to talk about are that you ask about, could we, Mr. Savas asked, can we get better participation from government camp people? I looked at that, Mr. Savas, and we do have the ability with the to elect by zones. You know, you would ask, could we make sort of a way, could we get people in government camp? The deal with the statutes, though, is that they say the zones have to be based on equal populations. So it really doesn't help. So the alternatives that I looked at is, hey, you could simply make a criteria for us to receive this land that you're going to be required to write in your bylaws that there's an ad hoc member that's appointed by the CPO in government camp that sits on the board. They wouldn't be a voting member, but they would be an ad hoc member. And that could get us around the fact that they don't even have to be a resident in government camp. They could appoint anyone they want. So that's one of the solutions I have. The other one is it could just simply be a requirement that we have a government camp planning committee must be established as part of our park system. It could be a criteria for doing that. Other issues that I looked at are, you know, the objections that you get. I really encourage you to make sure that when you get the objections, that according to ORS 198.735, that those are legitimate in terms of whether or not they are making valid things that you need to consider. The last thing I want to talk about is the mill rate. And Marcy's going to cover that a little bit more. What I looked at in the mill rates that you proposed is that you're looking at districts that have huge volumes of populations. We're not ever going to get there because of our restriction on BLM and Forest Service owning most of the ground. I also believe that you pointed out with your high mill rates, the concern I had was that you have this huge overhead there because they have so much equipment. They actually have people that are full-time repairing equipment, maintaining equipment, and acquiring new equipment. So from that standpoint, I think the $1 mill rate is a little too high, but I'll let Marcy address that a little bit more. I do think there's a legitimate thing for taking Wapanesha out because they do have their own skateboard park and everything over there. They probably of anybody there, they won't be serviced by us, as I would think that government camp will. And that's my conclusion. Trying to get into my time frame. And I'm glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, Gary, thank you very much. I don't see commissioners' hands yet, but I want to address a few of the statements that you made. You know, Gary, I served in the legislature, and I certainly understand legislative intent when laws are written and administrative rulemaking. And you talked about a lot about statutory control of this, of certain provisions that are outlined, but the one element that the legislature allowed for is a local decision-making and local control of the local governing body, which is a Board of County Commissioners. And Stephen Madcore, if I'm wrong, chime in. And that allows us to either accept it, reject it, or have a boundary change based on extenuating circumstances. I believe, Stephen, we can make a boundary change based upon what?
You can make a boundary change based upon whether or not you believe that this geographical area is going to be or not going to be benefited by the particular parks district. And I think arguments can be made, as Mr. Link has pointed out, that you could make an argument for both with government camp. He already said the Wapanesha area, an argument can be made to carve that one out because they have their own skateboard park and they might be the least to be served. His point about having people go down the hill into the Welch's rhododendron area is also a basis that the board could rely on to include government camp, or the separation of the two communities could be a basis for the board to say it's too far, too removed to be of benefit in the parks district. So you have a lot of discretion here. It's whether or not parks are going to be beneficial to these areas.
So we do have discretion on that.
You do.
Also, thank you. Also, based on the information that I received, and Gary, I've read the same emails that you have regarding the addition of a skate park. And I feel that the skate park was kind of thrown in at a last ditch effort, possibly last October or November, to satisfy the folks in government camp. I don't know if the government camp people have been even considered a ice skating park next to them. And you say there's some free land available up there. I think I know what you're talking about, that it could be donated by ODOT. Well, ODOT donating land, you may want to revisit that particular theory. I've never known ODOT to donate anything. And secondly, I believe there's a lot of other jurisdictions who have assigned use for that particular site that you mentioned. But there's something that's very troubling to me. Because of the voting of the population, if government camp was to be included in this, by your own admission, they would not have voting authority. They could only be ad hoc members. And you make the case for the people in government camp that that is indeed taxation without representation if they can't vote. Also, what I learned this morning is if we were to pass this, excluding the zip code 97028, I do not know what my commission is going to do. At a later date, through vote of the residences in 97028, they could annex themselves into your park district with all of the benefits that you claim that they would need. So your arguments are wonderful, and I appreciate the time that you've donated to these people. Now, regarding this park district, I want the petitioners to be very clear on something. You have one shot at this to be successful. One shot at this. And I think all 5 commissioners want you to be successful. However, we have received a huge amount of opposition to this, not only from people at government camp, but there are other people in your area that do not agree with this. Secondly, you talk about cherry picking is actually cherry stem. Imagine, if you will, a fruit cherry with a big stem going over to another area. I'm going to give an example. In my hometown of Molalla, we built a municipal swimming pool and we taxed the folks. And it became a big black hole where we threw money we could not recover. We had to close it down, and we still had to pay the bond on it, even though we weren't receiving receipts. And the tax base was not enough to cover it, and they had been totally miscalculated, and it was a disaster. So they decided, gee, let's form a recreation district, a recreation park district. And when I was on the commission last time around, they brought it before us and we said, no, you need to go out and gather signatures for it. They didn't have it. But my point in this is, it would be like the folks in Molalla forming a recreation district to pay for their swimming pool, and then cherry stemming the city of Estacada to pay for it. I'm putting that in perspective because it's the same geographic location. I would highly consider that people be flexible on us moving forward with this. I know my commissioners want to talk, and I have a couple hands up here now. There are 19 registered people on this topic and 12 people want to speak. Each person will get 3 minutes. They will have their opportunity to give their opinion. That's 36 minutes. I see 2 hands from my commissioners. Martha Schrader, you're up. You're still on mute, Martha. Thank you. Martha, you're still on mute.
Yeah, there we go. Got it. Finally. Three times is a charm.
Yes, it is, especially with technology.
We're doing very well, however. I just want to say that this has been a long-term project that folks here have been working on for a very, very long time. It started with the Hoodlands Women's Club, and I just want to commend them on the effort that they've made to bring it this far. My own feeling is that, parks development, I think libraries and parks are 2 of the things that we do best in this country, even though running parks districts can be a huge headache. as we all know, since we've been working with park districts for a while. I would like to see this go forward, quite frankly, with an opportunity for us to modify at this point in time the boundaries of it, because I think there's still too much dissension between government camp and the folks that have worked so hard to put this together. And the fact that they can opt in, I do think they'll benefit from it. I mean, I think that is a pretty solid argument, but the opposition has been so strong that I think we're going to have to split the baby with this one. That's just my opinion. I don't know where my other commissioners are on this. I really would prefer not to see this stalled at all. I'd like to see something move forward so people can actually work on this. But I think we may have to, I think a modification may be in order at this point. Thank you.
Chair Smith, Commissioner Savas, then Commissioner Fisher.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say that it sounds like Marcy Slater wants to speak too, so I'm gonna reserve some of my thoughts and questions for afterwards. And of course, there's people here that are going to speak as well. I want to hear what they have to say, and I'll probably have further comments. But being that Mr. Linkus is available, I do have a couple questions for him. Thank you, Gary, for your volunteer work on this and your clarity. I appreciate your approach and trying to work with everyone. My question is, I heard in part of your rationale, you used the word ice rink, and then later you talked about a skate park. So I'm just a little confused. Are they two separate things?
Could you repeat that for me, Mr. Savas?
Yeah, I heard you in your rationale early on in your presentation talk about, number one, an ice rink. And then later, when that part of the discussion was concluded, then the topic of a skate park came up. So I heard both, ice rink and skate park. Is it
Right.
both, or are they one and the same?
No, they are two different. The skate park, it's the park that the design was included in the design. And all due respect to Ms. Smith, that the skateboard park was not a last minute thing to appease government camp at all. The reality of the skate park is the fact that the only skate park for kids that live in the Hoodland area is going to Sandy on the bus. And so the idea, we all have the experience, and me in particular, of having my kids ride the bus in to ride the skate park and then calling my wife and saying, can you give me a ride home? I missed the last bus. So that's the skateboard park. So that's been in the plan from the beginning. The ice skating rink was never even on the radar of the initial board until the CPO meeting in November with government camp. And it was at that point in time, they brought it up. And it was after that that we, in looking at your Mount Hood long range comprehensive plan, we saw it again.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary. I believe my comments centered around the ice rink at government camp, not a skateboard. Yes, Paul, I know your hand is still up. I'm just offering a point of clarification on what I said. Paul, continue, please.
Yeah.
So that's the skate park. Is the ice skating park? The ice skating rink is up at government camp. So separate issue.
Okay. So I appreciate that. And as you rolled it out, I was thinking, coming from, many of my family members ice skate or once ice skated, and lack of facilities around here. So that intrigued me. And I'm sure it probably intrigues others if they had a nice ice skating rink, whether it be indoor, outdoor. Indoor is the practical thing to do, but I didn't see it in the feasibility study. I saw $899,000 for the skate park, a pump park, but no feasibility or financial means in which to address an ice skating rink, which is probably going to be a lot more money than $899,000. So I guess it's the viability of trying to reach that kind of aspiration financially which gets back to the millage rate, the proposed tax rate. Gary, do you know what the population of Wapanesha is?
It's very small, and I don't know it particularly, but it is, in my opinion, it's pretty far over the mountain. Very small population over there, and when I did look at further research that I did and looking at what they provide over there, they have all the facilities those kids will need, and it's all over there. I don't see. I think it's not in making adjustments. I think that's definitely. I feel you have a very good, strong case for let's take Wapanesha out of this. I kind of agree. I really want to make the point with Ms. Smith. I agree with her that this is it's your obligation to look at, and your responsibility and your right to look at your comprehensive plan. Look at the criteria that you've set out there and decide whether or not what is being proposed before you now is going to be the way that you want to succeed in fulfilling those policies and as far as your comprehensive plan. If we get an adjustment, I think there's two interesting things about the mill rate. If you make that adjustment downward, which I understand all the opposition up there, but I'm saying make the boundary smaller by taking them out, then it's kind of back to the drawing board to look at because what the very first thing that happens, they require this feasibility study and then they require a budget, but the budget's only the first year and the third year, and I even looked at that and go, what the heck is that? I mean, and it's a projected 3-year budget. And what I see you doing, which is, I think is probably more logical. Yeah, we understand 3 years, but what about 5 years? What about 6? What's the reality of what you're capable of doing? So I totally respect the way that you're approaching this and the concerns you have. What I see you doing is, if you're going to do this, we want it to succeed. And that's what you're asking us to do. I think the big question for us is, Marcy will talk to why the mill rate's what it is. I'm not so convinced that it should fall in the category of Tualatin and some of the areas that have that big rate. But at the same time, it needs to succeed. And I think Ms. Smith has said it, you have far more experience in what works and doesn't work in these park districts than we do. And we really rely on you as our elected officials to help guide this process. The fact that you've even given us the opportunity to participate is exceptional.
Thank you, Gary. We have a couple of other commissioners. We know that you're thankful on that. We appreciate it. The tone that you have set is very good. We have a couple other commissioners and we have 12 participants who want to speak on this. You will get an opportunity at the end to address our concerns. If you would like, please take notes. Go ahead, Gary. Gary Schmidt.
Commissioner Fisher is next, and then Commissioner Schrader.
Thank you, Chair Smith. I'm not sure who should answer this question, if it's Stephen Madcore or Gary Linkus, but I'm really interested in the could benefit and if there is any guidance or criteria based on the word could. I know that's a very precise question, but when we put it into this context, we have an area that has many second homeowners that own homeowners that own the homes or the residences, but they are not full-time residents. So do we look at would it be the majority of the people that are affected would be benefited or not benefited? Is there any guidance? Or is it just that if there's just an itty bitty little part of the population, such as the children that might benefit from after school programs, is there any framing of what could benefit means?
Not really. There's no case law on it, Commissioner. I mean, could is pretty liberal. It's not should or would or will, it's could. So that's, again, it gives you a lot of discretion.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. I'm not sure if Gary Linkus has a different view, but I'm just wanting to, before we hear the rest of the testimony, have that frame in my mind.
Commissioner Schrader, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm going to be brief because I really want to hear what other people have to say about this. My real issue, this has been a long time coming, and I really want to see this succeed one way or the other. And I'm wondering if anybody has any information about if we change the boundary, for example, what would be, what would the district have if we change the boundary? Yeah, I think, I wonder if we have that calculation. I suspect Commissioner Savas or Commissioner Schull might have that number. Because to me, at least—
Just a minute, commissioners, I'm going to stop you right there on the millage rate. It is not up, and this is advice from council, it is not up to the Board of County Commissioners to determine their millage rate. We don't discuss that. We have provided them with options over time.
Okay.
And what is before us today, we accept the parks proposal, we reject it, or we modify the boundaries. We are not here to do their math.
No, I'm just trying to determine, and I understand, Chair, so I'll let that drop. I'm just wondering if there would be enough for them if a boundary change, but.
I agree, and I have asked that question. I have not had the answer yet, but we have 12 presenters coming up, and then Gary will get an opportunity to back cleanup. Gary Linkus, excuse me.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, we have two more hands. Stephen Madcore.
Chair, I will say this in response to Commissioner Schrader's question is that Everett, Wild, and the rest of the county administration staff did draft and circulate a January 13th memo that I believe answers the question if you're talking about 97028. If that gets carved out, 232,000 is within the 97028 in terms of tax receipts over the course of a year. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Schrader?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Savas has his hand raised.
Yeah, my third point I wanted to make was that, you know, the financials, you know, I'm thinking ahead and thinking about, again, the district being successful. So in that context, similar to what I laid out at the first hearing, but particular to the ice rink here or any other future amenities, even frankly, it's even the programming are the means there to really accomplish the mission. And that's why I think I initially, out of the gate at the first hearing, asked for, is there a subject matter expert that could help us through that? But, you know, knowing that with the current boundaries and the assessed value with that particular tax base, which we cannot adjust apparently, you know, it really generates $500,000 to $600,000 a year. And, you know, I understand the capital costs. I understand that the feasibility or the financials that are in there cover a 3-year window, but, you know, there's, you know, you have to have administration. You're going to have overhead. You're going to have all the utilities to maintain the personnel. So that's at a cost. Programming, that's an extra expense. And then plus, of course, capital improvement and project management. So those are things that could really kick out an ice skating rink, even if it was bonded for a considerable amount of time. So, and just as an example, I'll stop there. But again, I'm just kind of not comfortable with the financial feasibility to accomplish the mission at hand, knowing that, especially with the distance in programming of 12 miles, you know, does the programming go up the mountain to 12 miles and then come back down and provide the similar programming down, or do people need to commute back and forth themselves? So I think that's an issue when it comes to access to facilities. Access is sometimes measured in feet, yards, and, you know, rarely miles. Thank you.
I don't see any other commissioners' hands, Gary. So Shannon, I'm going to turn this over to you. And please let the folks who want to address the Hoodland Park issue in, and each participant will have 3 minutes, and then move on to the next one, please.
Would you open the public hearing, Chair, please?
Yes, I will now open the public hearing on the Hoodland Park District formation, and we will now take public testimony.
Chair, thank you. I have a list of registered participants, but if anyone is on Zoom and did not have the chance to register ahead of time and would like to testify on this topic, please select the raise hand feature. I'm going to call on the registered participants first, and then the raised hands in the order they were received. First up is Mr. Rick Slavin. I apologize for not pronouncing people's names correctly. All right, Mr. Slavin, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Shannon. Good morning. I'm Rick Slavin, a resident of Government Camp 97028. On January 6th, I voiced my objection to the Park District as presented, supporting reasons cited by the Government Camp CPO. I'm here today to raise an objection to the record. The proposed itemized budget presented in the petition as Exhibit 1, page 11, with a maximum rate of 0.067 per $1,000 is not financially feasible and is misleading as written. I'm requesting that the Board of County Commissioners make a corrective statement and post that if this is to move forward with that rate. I also appreciate that Gary Linkus is trying to interpret the statute language about how government camp could be benefited, but I would say that he's reaching without any factual data to support those statements. I was present in 2019 when the CPO meeting entertained the idea about the CPO engaging in conversation, but I would hesitate to say that they were enthusiastic about the proposal. No more enthusiastic than when we entertained a proposal for the ski jump facility to be brought back to government camp through partnership with the Forest Service. The government camp CPO wants to engage with outside communities and also other organizations. And my observations over the last 15 years have been that it's generally a pretty happy conversation. If we get into this business where we're restating things and making claims without the conversation, that's where I think we get in trouble. Thank you, Board, for your time and your attention to this issue.
Next up, thank you for your patience. Next up is Nick Renard. Nick, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to testify again representing the Government Camp CPO, which includes the communities of Government Camp, Summit Meadows, and Wapanesha. These are all in the zip code 97028. I want to clarify again that I'm testifying today in the role of CPO chair, not as an individual, and I'm also willing to field follow-up questions from the commissioners. Since last hearing, I can report nothing has changed regarding community opposition to be included in the Park District boundary. If anything, more people have come forward to voice their opposition. In the past 2 weeks, even more community members have shared their written testimony with the CPO, testimony that has been emailed to the BBC or BCC email address, and which you must have already received. No one has contacted the CPO to share the minority opinion that they wish to be included in the Park District. The thing that stands out to me in observing how the communities of 97028 are choosing to express their voice is how unanimous their voice is. This is not often the case with other topics the community faces. The people up here are hoping to get excluded from the Parks District and turn their attention and energy to other important topics such as wildfire preparedness and improving traffic transportation infrastructure. The demographics of opposition include full-time, even lifelong residents, as well as part-time vacation homeowners. To Chair Smith's observation last hearing that 1, the original intent of transferring land to the Welch's communities did not include any properties in the 97028 zip code. 2, including those same communities does not make sense if you look at a map which shows a significant geographical separation. And 3, that vital service districts such as fire and schools might make sense, but a luxury park district is hard to justify. I say those observations are very much in agreement with community feedback that the CPO has received. The people up here, thank you for making those astute observations. All 3 observations Chair Smith made public at the hearing 2 weeks ago do indeed make it hard to justify including properties in the 97028. Regarding Commissioner Savas' questions of 1, is there a compelling project that a Parks District could implement that would sway people's opinion? Or 2, would a guaranteed position on a potential Parks District board entice people to reconsider inclusion? I'd say the answers currently are no and no, based off community feedback the CPO has received. It's been shared here already that government camp is already included in 7 existing special districts. Of the special districts that are confined to the 97028 zip code, there is already overlap among board members. This is a small community with an even smaller voting population to draw upon for special district board members. It seems there is not enough large enough pool of potential volunteers to field yet another board position, especially for a special district most people oppose. People up here are wanting to focus on other pressing topics, not a Parks District. An ice rink or dry land training facility have been portrayed as something the community needs or wants. However, since last hearing, I reached out to former members of the TIF Citizens Advisory Board.
Thank you, Nick. I'm going to try to observe the 3 minutes. There's a timer, but I don't know if everybody can see it. We may be the only ones able to see it. Thank you very much. Who's up next, Shannon?
Thank you, Chair. Next is Michael Coker. Michael, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'll be brief. My name is Mike Kocher. I own property in Government Camp. I'm a past member of the Collins Lake Board of Directors. I'm a proud member of the Government Camp CPO. I was at the meeting where the ski jump and the Parks Department were received, and they were received similarly by the Government Camp CPO. Interest. The last thing Government Camp property owners and residents need is a new line item on their property tax bill for something they will not use. I would compare the proposal to the story of the camel's nose. That's a story used as a metaphor for permitting a small, seemingly innocent act that opens up to something larger. I would recommend the commissioners use option 2, modify the petition by removing the property in zip code 97028, and then move the issue on to the ballot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next up, Chair, is Jacob Thompson. Jacob, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, Commissioners. Thanks for taking the time to hear my oral testimony again tonight. I'm Jacob Thompson, a homeowner in Government Camp. I'm here representing the community of Government Camp, Summit Meadows, and Wapanesha, or 97028 zip code. As you know, our community is asking you to modify this petition and omit our zip code. Before I start, let me clarify a comment from Mr. Linkous' testimony earlier. Our community is not recommending that we be added in the future to this special district. We're asking to be omitted. But to be a good community member, we would be open-minded into the future if circumstances change. But I'd like to ask you all to reflect on a question that might be worded slightly different. Why should 97028 be included in this petition? The only answer that's been presented thus far is, quote, think of the possibilities this park district could do for Government Camp. The reason why there is, quote, only think of the possibilities is because the petition has never intended to have a second park in Government Camp. The petitioners did not engage 97028 in the petition development because the Park of Welches was just that, a park in Welches. Why would the community of 97028 need to be engaged? If there was truly intention of a second park in Government Camp, the economic feasibility study would have modeled such, but it didn't. As Mr. Linkous testified, CPO Chair Reiner communicated back in 2019 on potential ideas to try and get the community on board. That was not followed up on and was not included in the study. Further in his testimony, throwing out ideas such as an outdoor ice rink and indoor ski training facilities as possibility sounds enticing, but doing it in a special district with an already questionably low tax rate is not practical. The cost to build either would be in the millions. Relying on grants and donations in the future is simply dreaming, and nothing against dreaming, but that's not a way to govern nor strategically assess where funds should be benefit a community. We've objectively assessed ORS 199462 And I want to just highlight a couple key points to those criteria. One, comprehensive planning for the area. As a reminder, we have a very formal planning that has been completed, the Government Camp Village Revitalization Plan. Nowhere in these plans or subsequent planning conversations has a park district been identified. Additionally, the petitioners have not appropriately engaged the 97028 community in this petition. In fact, Chief Petitioner Marcy Slater even admitted to this. She wrote a letter to the residents of Government Camp on October 23rd, 2021. Her full letter is submitted in our written testimony. She states, quote, "Dear neighbors, as we approach a critical point in the process for the Hoodland Park District formation, it has come to our attention that we have neglected one of our neighbors, Government Camp. It seems that we have failed to continue our conversation about the park district that we began in November of 2019 at that month's CPO meeting. We are sorry that we have dropped the ball and left you out of the planning and discussions." Let me repeat, quote, "We are sorry that we dropped the ball and left you out of our planning and discussions." That's her words, not mine. As a reminder, there was 2 full years between that letter and the initial Government Camp CPO meeting. Later on in the letter, she stated, "We would like to actively become more inclusive as we go forward."
Jacob, I appreciate your testimony and you may submit it in writing if you would like. Up next, Shannon.
Thank you, Chair. Up next is Kelly Peel. Kelly, you have, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, thanks, Shannon. Kelly Peel, I own a home in 97028. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I would like to ask a question before I give any written testimony of each of the commissioners. Can you please confirm that you have or have not read in full the written testimony that the CPO subcommittee submitted prior to the January 6th hearing and our written response that was more recently provided after that hearing? Both were submitted to the BCC email address via email.
Kelly, I suggest you continue with your testimony and commissioners can address your questions when you're done. Please continue.
Okay, that's great. The reason I asked that is just, I agree with everything that Nick and Jacob and the other members of our community have stated already today, but all of it, almost all of it, if not all of it, is outlined in those 2 documents that we collectively worked on, and the community put our heads together and outlined a very thorough written document for you all to consider. And sometimes things in writing are just easier to digest. And I don't need to restate any of it because it's already been submitted formally. So I just want to repeat that I'm adamantly opposed to 97028 being included in the proposed special district for the many reasons outlined in the written testimony and the response document that the CPO subcommittee has emailed to BCC, and make the formal request to please remove 97028 from inclusion in the special district boundary. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. I have read your submittals and I believe my commissioners have too, and they can comment on that whenever they want. Shannon, who's up next?
Thank you. Commissioner, the next up is Stephanie Arnold. Stephanie, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
My husband, Mark Prieto, and I have owned our cabin on East Lige Lane in Government Camp since 1989. We wish to express our strong opposition to the petition for a Hoodland Park District. It appears to us that this document was created to address a need in the town of Welches and then arbitrarily broadened to include all of the small communities in the Mount Hood area. No clear rationale for the inclusion of these communities is articulated in the petition. In fact, there is no demonstrable benefit to the 97028 zip code. We already have an abundance of recreational opportunities. Instead, we have other pressing needs to which our hard-earned property tax dollars should be directed. The petitioners claim that such a park district would help unite the various communities on Mount Hood. Unfortunately, the petition process and the petition itself have already had the opposite effect, driving a wedge between the groups involved. We strongly urge the county commissioners to eliminate the 97028 zip code from the petition before forwarding it to the May ballot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next up is Regina Lithgow. Regina, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Regina Lithgow. My zip code is 97068. I mean 7. So many 8s. I'd like to say the reference to the 97028 zip code is not all government camp geographically. There are hundreds of properties close to rhododendron in that zip code. Having an ice rink in government camp was their idea in November 2019. They were in favor of the potential and possibilities of a park district. So the feasibility of a skate rink and the possibility of a park district were more favorable at that time. And it should not be erased by taking government camp out when there are so many people against it who have zip codes in other towns other than government camp. And I know there's probably many more registered voters who live in government camp that haven't had all their voices heard by now. It's mostly being represented by the people who have second homes up there. This is like a precedence when you're going against what communities want to do when you don't even live in their communities full time. The Welch's school or the park district boundary was not cherry stemmed because we were using the boundary where the Welch's school bus goes, so where the Welch's elementary school would be served. So it had nothing to do with picking government camp for any other reason. It was, we always felt there was a connection between our communities. We have a connection because we all use each other's services. Our kids play up there. Our kids play down in Welch's. That's why we got this Welch's school bus to be part of our boundary. I think we're an underserved rural community. We're not urbanized like other districts in Portland and Clackamas. We would like to have representation from government camp for the board. There would be no reason not to have somebody do that. And I've talked to a few people who live up there that would be interested in being on the board because they live there full time. So government camp would be represented. So I don't know what else to say, but I hope that you give it a fair shake and that we don't see a wedge between government camp and our communities. That statement might have come from people who haven't lived on the mountain that long. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. I'm having staff check currently on a statement that you made that the 97028 zip codes go into rhododendron or one of those areas.
Correct.
So I'm having staff check on that. Yep. And take a look at that. Thank you. Evidently, Shannon just told me that everybody can see the timer who has video. Is that right, Shannon?
Yes, that is my understanding.
Okay, but people calling in on the phone don't have video.
That's
correct?
True.
Okay, so we'll just have to, do that. Thank you very much. And Shannon, who's up next?
Marcy Slater is up next. Marcy, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. We have here at this same residence other people that want to testify: Bonnie Heyman, Mary Matilla, Cindy Sawicki, and Cindy Dial. I believe that you have blue cards from another meeting that will allow them to as well.
Hey, Marcy, can I say something?
Yep.
I also said at that first meeting, even though I have blue card, those people need to sign up again because they might not show, they might not. So there's a registration online. If you could submit those names to Shannon, we'll go ahead and take those. We kind of need to know who they are.
Okay.
Would you please have your folks do that? And I'm not going to cut into your time here. I'm going to allow you a little bit more. So go ahead, please, with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Smith. I think that someone is doing that right now.
Okay, good.
Our misunderstanding. A question was raised about the tax rate and chosen for the feasibility study. The maximum tax rate chosen was 67 cents per thousand to sustain a park district in Hoodland. Could it sustain a park in Hoodland, Clackamas, or Oregon in itself? So we have a research question, and we thank you for challenging our assumptions that a maximum mill rate of 67 cents per thousand of assessed property value will manage a proposed Hoodland Park District. Bonnie Heyman, Chief Petitioner, doing the research, and she will give you the numbers.
Okay, I have looked into we do have your numbers for.
Excuse me.
$1.46.
Bonnie,
They have a population.
Bonnie, hello. Hey, excuse me, folks. If you switch speakers, you need to introduce yourself and state your area of residence. It's very confusing to us listening because we can't always tell. So please state your name and your area of residence. I appreciate that. And you can each have 3 minutes. It doesn't all have to be under one speaker, okay? So please state your name, Bonnie.
Okay, I'm Bonnie Heyman. I'm a chief petitioner. I'm in Welch's 97067.
Thank you, ma'am.
My research has showed that the different areas of the park districts around the state vary greatly. Their rates, as in Bend with the $1.46, they have a population of 93,917, which is 15.67 times larger than the 6,000 in Hoodland. Redmond, another community that has a park district, has a rate of 0.037. That's for a 30,000 population, which is 5 times larger than our 6,000. Sisters has a 0.22 rate with 2,643, which is only 0.44 of our size. Hood River has a rate of 0.32, which population of 7,715, which is 1.2% larger than us. Lapine, 0.3, which is 2,343.4. To go along with the ones you guys cited, I feel like it's really unfortunate to compare us to Tualatin Hills, which is the largest special park district in Oregon. They have 95 park sites, 70 miles of trails, 8 swim centers and 6 recreation centers. We are not proposing anything close to that.
So we believe our original assumptions about the budget and sustainability were pretty accurate. Our funding sources will also include grants, low interest loans, and as a general revenue budget shows in the original feasibility study, we have considered payment for a grant writer whose job it will be to search for monies available, specific communities and populations that are demographic and description, including socioeconomic trends of Mount Hood community as defined by the Clackamas County Comprehensive Plan, and most current statistical data, i.e. the 2020 census. We are also considering pay for play as part of our revenue and for all events and activities for out-of-district patrons. We will also be filing a 501c3 tax designation in order to be able to accept donations of money and property as opportunities through fundraising and philanthropy present themselves. The maximum tax rate of 67 cents per thousand will be used to save for matching fund amounts and for special projects related to specific grants. The tax rate of 57 cents per thousand, as demonstrated in the feasibility study attached to this petition, is the budgeted amount for the general maintenance and staffing costs. On a personal note, my husband and I own a second home in Portland in unincorporated Washington County, which of course is served by Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec. It is a fact that one of the reasons that we bought the area was because we would be part of that district. We knew when we purchased the house that we would not have a vote in Portland or in Washington County. This is common knowledge and should come as no surprise. Homeowners in this that owning property in an area where the local governance is focused on quality of life and wellness of residents. This adds to the value of property and overall health of the neighborhood. On a point, I also want to reiterate what Regina said. 97208 also includes Forest Service cabins, which are taxed with property taxes that are very close to rhododendron and much farther away from government camp than the rest of the government camp communities that are represented. And if government camp were taken out of our district, we believe that we would still be able to function as a district with the same rate if we, for a lot of reasons, specifically because we would be taking out some of the things generated by serving government camp and the ski areas up there, like the Mountain Express hub at the park. And the other issue is that we would continue to serve our residents and their needs, and with the amount of money that would be charged on the tax rate. And I can go into that more specifically in a letter to you today. And thanks for your time.
I assume that last speaker was Marcy Slater. It's very confusing, folks, when you switch speakers. We don't know who's doing that. So hopefully each person who wants to speak can call in individually. If you don't have the technology to do that on this one time, I'm going to allow multiple speakers, but please tell us who you are.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Marcy. I know you guys are working really hard, and you know, technology is such a bugaboo for a lot of us, including me. Okay, Shannon, you bet. Shannon, who's up next?
All right, next is Lisa Galbraith. Oh, it doesn't look like Lisa is on.
We'll come back to her if she comes on, okay?
Okay. Greg Leo. Greg Leo, you are up. Please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Smith and members of the Clackamas County Commission. For the record, my name is Greg Leo. I'm Public Affairs Representative for Mount Hood Meadows, and I'm voicing the company's opposition to the establishment of the Hoodland Park Taxing District that's before you today. Speaking on behalf of Meadows and MBD Development, these are organizations that have long-standing and deep involvement with the rural communities of Mount Hood, including government camp. My comments are in support of and in addition to the government camp CPO and the subcommittee that it created on this issue. This proposed taxing district is poorly conceived for the following reasons. First of all, it distracts time and attention from the urgent priorities for Clackamas County that this board has so articulately and worked hard, so hard for over time. And that is wildfire mitigation, suppression, preparedness, transportation improvements, reliable public transit, and affordable housing. These are the real priorities of the mountain. And this issue here is a distraction, we believe. Further, this creates a financially unsustainable liability that falls to Clackamas County taxpayers by transferring this real property, which could be sold and put on the tax rolls, bringing in revenue. And Chair Smith, I just wanted to say your comments about long-term operating costs for things like swimming pools is an excellent point. It's not just the initial capital costs, but the long-term costs that do burden communities. We feel this proposal unfairly and disproportionately taxes communities who do not want and do not need it and will not receive a benefit from this. So this approach used to pursue this initiative was based on forcing something through, even after receiving the input. We believe Government Camp was pretty articulate here about communicating its opposition to being included in this district, rather than working collaboratively through the concerns voiced by the community leaders. We believe that the best solution is not to approve this, but rather send the proponents back to thoughtfully and proactively collaborate and work with the communities of Mount Hood, and that the finance personnel of the county can take a look at the goal of achieving a financially sustainable initiative. We recommend option 3, reject the petition and enter into an order dismissing the petition. We really appreciate the patience of this commission, the Clackamas County Commission, in working through these issues. We're happy to work with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. Shannon, who's up next?
Thank you, Chair. Up next is Michael Beckman. Michael, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Michael Beckman. Thank you, commissioners. I spoke on the January 6th meeting pertaining to concerns about how government camp improvements were financed. Today, I would like to, one, counter Regina Lithgow's statement that the opposition is second homeowners. I would like to speak for the longtime residents in 9728. I have lived in government camp for over 66 years. And due to short speaking time, I drafted an email that was submitted to it, recorded by the clerk for the county commissioners. I also copied it to many of the lifetime and long-term full-time residents in government camp. I asked for their input. Some were unaware that this was going on. That's all 100% of the long-term residents who are not second homeowners are 100% against this proposal to include 97028. All agreed with my statements in the email to the Board of County Commissioners. I hope that the commissioners have read this email, as I expressed a number of concerns in relation to the parks proposal pertaining to 97028 and government camp. Since I have some time left, I sincerely hope people are aware of the pitfalls of new members to a special district that they may overlook. I am a past board member of the special district, Government Camp Sanity District number 2. And we ran ragged, but we were able to pull over years the district out of the hole and have a very successful financial and facilities plan. I have not seen a financial or facilities plan for this parks district. It's just thoughts, possibilities, etc. I hope the commissioners will listen to the long-term residents and exclude 97028 from this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Shannon, who's up next?
Sorry for the delays, everyone.
Don't worry about it.
Up next is, James Bourne. James, you please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes. James?
Why don't we come back, Shannon, and reach out to the 2 speakers, Lisa Goldbraith and James Bourne, and we're going to go ahead and move on, if you would.
All right. Next up is Jeremy Evans. Jeremy, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. My name is Jeremy Evans. I represent Summit Meadow Cabins, and I'm a lifelong resident of Summit Meadows, basically. I have sent an email in on this and, basically agree with everyone that's spoken thus far that, Wapanesha and Summit Meadows really don't have much benefit to it. I speak to that as one of the only residents that has actually attended Welch's school from there And, you had to hoof it 1.5 miles to the Huckleberry Inn to catch the school bus. So the fact that the school bus route was inclusive to Summit Meadows and Wapanesha, I think is a little bit overstated. And I just, I don't have any problem with the park district. I just think government camp should not be included. And that's pretty much all I got.
Thank you. Up next.
Up next is Dennis Gelfie. Dennis, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon or good morning. My name is Dennis Gelfie. I live in the Welch's area, 97067. If by chance this board decides to remove government camp area from the proposed Hoodland Park District, then I would still urge the board to allow the Park District petition to be presented to the voters in the May 2022 election with the change boundary. The only other change I would suggest is to be considering to reduce the number of proposed board members to represent the smaller district. The proposed maximum tax rate should remain the same since this is what close to 1,000 voters supported when they signed the petition. There may be concern that the tax rate may be too low, but the Park District Board would just have to adjust to this reduced budget. The Park District isn't just about physical structures and amenities. It can be used as an agency to help organize many things such as after-school activities and adult education opportunities. There's been testimony indicating that we don't need an urban type park in our rural area, but let's face it, our area is changing. I hope we can develop some kind of housing opportunities in our community that makes it possible for young families to work and live here instead of having to commute from Sandy and East Multnomah County. This workforce is needed to fill out our tourist and service jobs that are essential to our economy. Thank you for your consideration in this matter, and thank you for the hard work that you all do.
Thank you, Dennis. Stephen Madcore, I have a question for you. He said we should reduce the number of board members if the government camp is excluded. That is not up to the BCC, is it?
Jeff, can you answer that?
Yeah, this type of district elects their own board and sets their own numbers. So it's not something that this board would consider, but if we put this on the ballot to be formed, then they would set their own representatives.
Okay, Paul, you have your hand up?
Yeah. Yes, I do. So that's, let me ask a question then. I was surprised to hear that response. I don't know if it's spelled out in 266 and what the number is. And I think it is actually, I could be wrong. What I do want to know is, if it passes, typically these things come before the Board of County Commissioners, and what is created is a master order. Is that correct? Or is that actually the master orders created by the new park board itself?
Good question.
We put it on the ballot to establish the district with the rate as would be in the petition, and the boundaries is either they're spelled out or is modified. And then chapter 266 takes over and sort of fills in the blanks for this initial election.
So the board itself, the new board, essentially is the one who crafts the master order, which would spell out positions and zoning and all those other flexibilities. It's not us.
Would not be this. The role of this board would then just be restricted to annexations, withdrawals, and that type of proceedings under chapter 198 in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Good question and good answers. Thank you for the clarification on that. Shannon, can we have the next speaker? And how many more people are left to talk on this issue? Are you on mute, Shannon? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We have 4 people registered to speak, 2 of which I believe are the people that you requested from Marcy's house to register, but they are not appearing separately. And then we have 1 hand raised.
Okay, so if they're at Marcy's house and it's Marcy's equipment, have her get on again, but they need to introduce themselves. And we'll go ahead and do the other 2 who are registered separately. So Marcy, if you're hearing that, can you make that happen? Thank you. Go ahead, who's next?
Next up is Mary Mattia. Mary, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes. Can you unmute yourself, Mary? Okay. I can come back?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Shannon,
Okay.
come back.
Mary Jacob, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Mary Jacob. I'm a full-time resident of Government Camp 97028. My husband and I are voters here, as are 5 of us in our building altogether. I would like to also say that it is not second homeowners that are opposed to this. It is full-time, long-term residents that have expressed the most opposition to being included in this, ourselves included, but many other of our friends who are long-term, full-time residents here. Couple of comments. Gary Linkus made a comment about the skateboard and snowboard camps in the summers. I don't know if you're all aware that High Cascade Snowboard Camp that used to house their kids here at Cascade Ski Club and all over Government Camp was sold to Windell's several years ago. Those kids are no longer in Government Camp in the summers. They are down the hill below Welch's at Windell's at their facility. They're housed down there. They go down there on a bus when they're done on the hill. They're not skateboarding all over Govey like they used to be. I only know of, gosh, maybe a dozen school-aged children that live in Government Camp. And I find it difficult to think that they would be able to stay after school and make use of this skateboard park because their bus goes home when their bus goes home. And it's a long drive to ask mom to come down and pick them up every day. And a lot of moms are working, that they may not really have the access and the ability to stay down there and make use of the park after school. But I just wanted to make those comments that very few kids are here. And I can't imagine that they're going down there. We would respectfully request that our district or our area, our zip code be removed from the Parks District. We don't feel it's a benefit. We can't imagine supporting something like an ice rink, which is an expensive endeavor. We don't have the kinds of population or even tourists that really are looking for that kind of an expensive recreational opportunity. So we request that the district be altered, and we thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary. Shannon, who's up next?
James Bourne, we're gonna give him another chance. James, if you could unmute yourself, state your name and residence, you'll have 3 minutes. Okay. Now we're going to bring in Marcy Slater again. Marcy, I believe that you have other people at your residence, and so we'll have them go one at a time and introduce themselves. Please unmute yourself and have your company introduce themselves.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Mary Matilla, and I am speaking as a representative of the senior population in the Hoodland area. I'm a 25-year resident of Rhododendron on a fixed income, and I am strongly in favor of establishing the Hoodland Park District. We believe that a park district in our area will improve our quality of life, enrich our community, and leave a legacy for future generations. We moved here for improved quality of life away from the city, near forests, streams, clean air, natural beauty. I continued working in the city, commuting nearly every day, but recently working remotely has become an option for many. And current demographic data shows that working remotely has become a new normal for many people and is embraced by those who can live where they want and still earn a living. But living a balanced life requires more than a job. We also moved here for recreational opportunities. We explored and participated in many sports. We became avid hikers. We explored biking opportunities. We enjoyed cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. We went on casual walks and exercise treks. We joined the local golf club and the local garden club. Fast forward 25 years, like many others, our needs and abilities have changed, yet we still have recreational interests and exercise needs as we age in place. We need affordable, safe, and clean options to satisfy these needs because biking and walking are unsafe on our roads and highways. Hiking, winter sports, and even golf are too strenuous for many with aging bodies and joint replacements. And now we have grandchildren who need safe recreational opportunities too. We believe that a park district will improve seniors' quality of life by providing safe bike paths, gentle, some ADA accessible, shared meeting places, a venue for outdoor entertainment and live music, an expanded community garden that would benefit anyone in the district, even government camp where they could grow vegetables in the sunshine. We believe a park district would enrich our community because it would also provide accessible and safe public restrooms,
the sections of the
security with lighting and personnel to assure our safety, and maintenance with regular oversight and cleaning. We believe a park district would provide an opportunity to leave a legacy for future generations. We know it would increase our property taxes, but they would be offset by the benefits of increased property values, value and character added to our community, and providing children safe, clean places to play where they could get needed exercise away from computers and video games. We must plan for the future. Children are our future leaders of our community and our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there another speaker at that location?
Yes.
Okay, Cynthia, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm Cindy Sawicki from Welches, Oregon. And I just want to say we all live in this tight-knit community and we're interdependent upon one another due to our remoteness and designation as a rural frontier. Clackamas County Park District supports the formation of a local park as it is difficult to serve the Mount Hood corridor. To replace the Dormant Center, which was part of Hoodland Village that housed the senior center, library, and preschool. The park district could also possibly assume responsibility for the senior center. Hoodland has an aging population and 40% of the households include at least one person over 60. Not everyone skis and it is critical to remain active, especially during winter months. The population is getting older as many people retire here. A community center would provide a venue for fitness for all ages. The Better Bones class for seniors has outgrown the current senior center. Physical fitness is particularly important to skiers, hikers, and mountain bikers. Obesity in Oregon has jumped from 1 in 10 to 1 in 3 since 1990, and we need to reverse that trend. The center could also hold special events and other classes such as art, computer, outdoor concerts, as well as a place to meet informally and play cards. The winter months can be very isolating, and residents can go to the center for social activity and interaction. Community centers are vital to overall health and well-being of an area, which is demonstrated by the fact that Portland has 21, Sandy, Westland, and Milwaukee each have 2, Fairview, Troutdale, Estacada, Corbett, Beaverton, Lake Oswego, and Tualatin each have 1. Okay, government camp would benefit from a park districts. And initially, several emails were sent out to the CPO in November 2019. And at that time, government camp did not ask to be excluded. The first opposition didn't appear until the 11th hour this past October. This was after the boundary was sent to the state for approval and after the feasibility study was completed and submitted to the county by the deadline. 1,132 voters signed the petition that was turned into the county elections office. 12 miles from Hoodland to government camp takes 15 to 20 minutes. Residents of government camp come down to the area for groceries, hardware store, church, and restaurants. Skiers drive 13 miles to Meadows in Parkdale, so it's not that far. Hoodland provides the workers for government camp and businesses as they cannot afford the average price of $640,000 for a house. We support all of government camp, including the fire department. We supply all of the volunteers, as I personally was involved with the Golden Poles fire, bringing meals up to all the firefighters. They can afford the $200 per year, which is what we have based this on, at an average assessed value, not market value, assessed value of $300,000. We respect the commissioners allow this to go to the district, go to the ballot so we can vote, sorry.
You're on mute, Chair Smith.
Okay, we have one more person.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you very much, Cindy. Am I up now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Cindy Dial. I live in Brightwood, 97011. I so appreciate the time and effort that everyone has given to this Hoodland Park District. As much as I'd like to recite the aspirations and dreams of swarms of residents and individuals alike, I'll keep this as short, precise, and capturing as possible for time everything. I'd also like to say I have 3 young boys, ages 1, 3, and 5, that are the purest example of time marching forward and growing every day, no matter what. Today, I'm fortunate enough to be here to represent voices from all of the villages of Mount Hood. I myself am a 3rd-generation Mount Hood resident and have been uniquely networking within many social classes across multiple generations for more than 11 years now. I was formerly a daycare as well as housekeeping employee and have earned a bachelor's in community development. I'm in close communication with many employees that make up different departments our mountain economy depends on. The year-round resorts, food and beverage, our markets, independent vendors, nonprofits, the school, education, even the library. Collectively, we depend on one another, directly and indirectly. This park district is property protection in a bundle that's able to capture the ever-expanding demand for adequate and adjustable efforts towards learning, adapting, and wellness activities for all ages. Development is inevitable with population growth. Making the decision to form district, we would be able to guide Mount Hood's development with balance and living community voice, historical respect, all through one major channel labeled recreation. It could serve as an economic revolving door equipped with snow stops and generators for backup power. One of the most unique ways to ensure that money stays in our economy, in our villages, for us, by us. Oregon sits at #1 on many lists of most beautiful places in America. I have seen the surge of people from all different places land here in my town, our foothills, through vacation, short-term, and permanent residence. This park district opportunity values local process through holism, sustainability, diversity, organic development, empowerment, and balanced development. It will protect and promote business partners, resources, and infrastructure that already exist.
Thank you very much for coming today. Your time is up. Shannon, who's next?
Next up is Maureen Musser. Maureen, unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Maureen Musser. I've had a cabin in government camp for 50 years. I've also lived in Rhododendron, and I grew up with a family in our cabin that we used to own on Road 28 in Rhododendron. So I've had quite of a visiting and living experience on the mountain for a long time. One thing I wanted to mention was someone said something about the Forest Service homes near Rhododendron being in the 97028 zip code. I just wanted you to realize, or perhaps they've changed the law, but the Forest Service homes do not pay property taxes. At least they didn't a long time ago. I'm assuming that they still don't. They're considered personal property. And the owners pay a personal property tax, but not county taxes or land taxes. Someone probably may have to check on that to make sure, but I don't think they pay any property taxes. Thank you. thank you for holding the hearing. And I'm very much opposed to having government camp included in the park district.
Okay, thank you. Shannon, how many people left?
We have one person left, Chair, Sally Niedermeyer.
Okay, just a minute, Shannon. After this person, the board will take a 5-minute break and return. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Sally, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for hosting. My name is Sally Niedermeyer. I retired in 2016 and moved to government camp full-time. I've been a homeowner up there since 99. I would urge you to look at this proposal more carefully. I do believe that the Parks District proposal was really came together because of the proposal that the dormant land was going to be donated to the Hoodland area from Clackamas County within a certain time frame. And so I think this proposal has been very rushed and that there has been not enough thought given to it. We are in a time of a very high inflation rate. I want you to consider what's happened at the Kiwanis camp. The pool there has gone to disarray. The community center there has gone to disarray. The senior center in Hoodland has been closed. It is looking for a new facility. I tried to get a community plot at the current site where the park is going to be built for at least 2 years when I first moved into government camp full time. I was unable to access the community garden plots because of a full long line of waiting. The Mount Hood Express has been a wonderful addition to the mountain. However, by the time it gets to government camp, that bus is packed and full. I rarely can get up a bus ride up to Timberline if I want to take my bike up there. Same if I want to get on, I was an instructor at Timberline. I can't get on that bus to get to work on time. There's not a chance. So we do have issues. I want you to consider that the proposal might need to be delayed. Our last election for a special district, Jeremy and Mike can address this better, but I think there was 21 people that voted in our sewer board or our roads maintenance. I was one of the registered voters that did vote, but it was very surprising to see that 7 people could carry a vote in government camp. We are not going to be represented if this proposal makes the ballot. There are not a lot of registered voters in government camp. Most people are second home owners. Most people are not registered to vote in that area. So I want you to consider, if you put this proposal forward, what it is going to do to the community. Is it really the best time to be doing this? Maybe we need to do a little more study as far as what the impact is in this community, and is this the best time to do that? Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Shannon, is that the end?
That is the end of the list, Chair.
Okay, my Verizon time says it is 11:55. I suggest we take a break and return at 12:05. That gives us 10 minutes. Is that okay? And then I have some additional information that commissioners might want to be interested in. So our recording crew, we will be paused until 12:05. Thank you very much. Yeah, because it was a little rough. I accepted the motion that we close the public hearing and continue this as a board discussion item only and a decision point to February 3rd. However, I will accept written testimony until January 27th. Any further discussion on this particular motion? Hearing none. Shannon, please take the poll.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, commissioners. Now, Jeffrey, would you please enlighten the board on what we discussed just a few minutes ago?
Yeah, thank you. There's a few things that I wanted to address that came up during some of the testimony and other comments. One of the first things that came up was a discussion about how much of the revenue from the feasibility study we represented by zip code 97028. And looking at that, I think to clarify that, it's about 21% of the total. Now, what's in the feasibility study, I believe it was based on a rate of 57 cents per thousand, but the district has proposed up to 67 cents per thousand. So that may help with adjusting numbers as you ponder the question of how the revenue would be impacted by removing that portion of the proposed district. Also, I had looked on the U.S. Postal Service website and just typing in a search of the zip code 97028 and what cities or places are represented by that. The Postal Service did not include any place names involving rhododendron on that page. Now, it might be something that members of the public can submit information through January 27th that would enlighten that discussion, but that is what was found on the USPS website. Also wanted to—
Jeffrey, can I interrupt you? Commissioners, look at the map. I viewed the map, and yes, 97028 goes clear down to the outskirts of rhododendron. And I thought, well, maybe there's houses there, but according to our attorney, according to the United States Postal Service, there are none, and we would accept testimony to the contrary on that if somebody wants to submit it. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, thank you. Also want to revisit Commissioner Savis's question regarding the number of board members. In this case, yes, Chapter 266, 266.320 specifies the number of board members. And what the petitioners needed to put in their petition was what they chose. This statute requires that a petitioner ask for either 3 or 5 board members. This petition unfortunately specifies 7. So that would be in conflict with the statute. I think we need to hear something from the petitioners as to whether they would like to have it be 3 or 5. I would, 5 is closer to 7, but that's what Chapter 266 requires. That would be in what would go on the ballot is the size of the board so that people can register to run for those positions.
Okay, commissioners, you're open for comment. Commissioner Savis, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I want to just thank everyone for their testimony. I always learn something. I love when I learn something. And one of the things I just want to say that I learned, probably the most significant thing here today, is that all the while I have been living in the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and attended many meetings as, during being a commissioner and as a liaison, I've heard, former staff say that we have the lowest millage rate or rate per thousand than any other district in the state. And so when I heard the testimony, I heard something counter to that, and I checked it out, and it appears for at least one of the parks districts I checked, Lapine, that's indeed the case. So perhaps maybe that meant urban, I don't know, but it's nice to know. So I want to thank that person for bringing that point up. Certainly, I appreciate also realizing today that we're going to have a greater discussion on February 3rd. But I do want to say, while it's fresh in my mind, that I recognize the will of the petitioners to put this on the ballot. So I can't ignore that. I can't ignore that, quite a few people signed the petition. And in recognition of that, I asked my staff and with some help and the clerk, elections clerk, to look at the petitions page, the signature list, and compile the zip codes of the petitioners. And I'm going to basically give you some context of what that looked like. So in the 97011 Brightwood, there were 135 signatures. And this is probably approximate. In the 97067, it was 481, which makes up Weemy and Welch's. 97055, Sandy and Brightwood, there were 44 signatures. And 97049, the rhododendron zigzag, was 303 signatures. And 97028, where we spent a lot of our time discussing it, which is Government Camp, Summit Meadows, Wapanesha, and Timberline Lodge, addresses identified on the signature list, 14 signatures. So again, when I recognize the will, as I understand it, the will of the petitioners, and realizing those numbers and the proportion of those numbers to the residents, it does make me ponder and consider withdrawing the 97028 from the petition. I also heard, or from the proposal. I also heard from Marcy Slater today that withdrawal would not undermine, apparently, or in that she felt, I think, as I interpret it, that she felt that the petition it should still go on the ballot measure with 0728 withdrawn, if that's what we decided to do. So my question back to legal counsel is this: what is that? A lengthy exercise to get meets and bounds that would reduce that? Is that incumbent upon us to provide the meets and bounds, basically the boundaries defined for that district? I mean, who has that burden, if you will?
Yeah, thank you. I think in the board order, in our initial actions, we can just state it however we, most accurately can do without a typical surveyors or meets and bounds type description. Eventually, this is going to go to Department of Revenue to record the final boundary of this district. I think that's something that we can have the elected members of the new district, if that is what happens and the voters approve it, do that work to submit it to the Department of Revenue. Because their election is going to be after this annual deadline for submission to Department of Revenue of March 31st. So they would be in place and able to do that work for the upcoming year. It wouldn't be the duty of this body.
Paul, I know you want to continue. I'm going to turn over the chair of this meeting to Martha at this point, and I need to leave. So and then you can continue. I was asked to restate that we will be accepting written testimony until 5 p.m. on January 27th for anybody who wants to submit any more information. I too am thinking like Paul, we need to exclude government camp, Wawanisha, and quite possibly all the 97028 zip codes. And I believe the onus is on us to decide where that boundary is. And I would like staff to get busy on that for consideration on the February 3rd hearing. Martha, thank you very much for stepping up to the plate. Thank you, commissioners. And it was a great meeting with a lot of information, and you have more work to do. Goodbye.
Thank you, Chair Smith.
So thank you. I'll continue with my closing thoughts, and that is, I certainly appreciate the aspirations of the people that are excited, that went to all the work, and that's a lot of work to put this all together. So in recognition of those aspirations and that effort, I'm inclined to support this going forward with perhaps the removal. Again, I haven't firmly decided that, but that's where I'm leaning right now. I'm just going to be transparent about that. That said, there's my last closing suggestion or hope is that hope everyone can recognize this is how difficult it has been because of COVID. And I say this because I see some tension building up between the communities of government camp and the people, down the mountain in the other communities. And I'm hoping that, people can make amends and realize that sometimes the difficulty of shutdowns of communication because of COVID has not interfered just with your process, but it has interfered with a number of processes around the county that I know of that have caused a lot of heartache and, somewhat, fragmented information sharing, a number of things that have just, again, created blocks of information and have not had that one-on-one personal touch and ability for people to communicate as they likely would. So a number of efforts around the county have been somewhat compromised because of COVID. So hopefully everyone can, in the future, once we get back to normalcy and COVID's gone, we can mend those fences. And I'm just hoping that people can just get along better. That's all I have to say. And that concludes my comments for today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Salas. Commissioner Fisher or Commissioner Scholl, do you have any comments? I can't see hands up, so I'm asking.
Oh, yes, Vice Chair Schrader, I'd like to say that I am eager to see this move to the ballot in May. I know the people of the Hoodland area are keen on developing their community with this new park district. I'm also aware that we have two different communities here. One is 11 miles up the road that already possesses the highest concentration of recreational opportunities of any zip code in our county and maybe of any zip code in the state. So I look forward to our meeting on the 3rd of February. I agree with Commissioner Savas that 97028 probably needs to come out of this. And so we can see this proceed to the ballot in May, to the pleasure of the people of the Hoodland area, and also in accordance with the will of the people of Government Camp. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shull. Commissioner Fisher, do you have anything you'd like to add before we move on?
I don't think so. I appreciate that we are going to hold this and take more information. And I just want to publicly thank Kimberly, who's been on the other side of my text messages, just asking questions and getting me answers. I'm interested in just looking at all the different dynamics and all the different numbers and who's all affected and how many voters in each area. And we know how many properties there are in both areas, but I'm interested also in the representation side of it. So we will get more information and then we will have further discussion when we convene on this issue as a board.
Okay, so be it. So Gary, we need to move on, and I believe we have, help us out here. What's coming up next?
Yes, you have a lot more business commissioners. Jeff, did you want to say something before we move on? You're on mute, Jeff.
Sorry. I want to revisit a question from Commissioner Savas. The question regarding, is it our job to redefine the boundaries of this if we take a portion out by zip code? And I believe that's correct for the matter of assessment. I've sent a question over to our elections office to get you a more specific answer on that. If that would be enough information for them to get this measure on the ballot for the remaining portion of a district, if that's what you choose to do. So I'll supplement that with some additional information for you, but didn't want to leave that without addressing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Okay, Mr. Schmidt, is it now time to move on?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Your public hearings are now closed. Next is a board discussion item, and the item is Supportive Housing Services Master Intergovernmental Agreement. We have several staff here from multiple departments to give you a brief presentation. And they are Tony Carter, Interim Director of the Clackamas County Housing Authority, Emily Klepper, Policy Advisor from County Administration, Andrew Naylor, Assistant County Counsel. So if you can hold a moment while all those folks come in. And if there's others, then let me know or raise your chat hand and we'll bring you in the room too. Staff, that is. Thank you. Are there any, first, yes, Rod Cook, please bring in Rod Cook. He's Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Is there any other staff, Emily, that should be in here? Okay.
Nope, thank you.
Wait just a moment for Rod, please. Okay, the team is here. Whoever is going first, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Good morning, commissioners. I'm Emily Klepper, Policy Advisor with County Administration. I'm here with Rod Cook and Tony Carter from Health, Housing, and Human Services, and Andrew Naylor with County Counsel. We are here to present the final intergovernmental agreement for the Supportive Housing Services Program. Investment for supportive housing services was approved in the May 2020 Metro Measure. And this IGA lays the groundwork for an extensive regional effort to address the homelessness crisis. County staff have been working with our partners at Metro, Multnomah County, and Washington County to negotiate this agreement and begin program rollout. The IGA outlines the distribution of funds, reporting requirements, oversight, and accountability. As I mentioned earlier, the SHS program is unique because of its region-wide implementation. And I'll just take a quick moment to plug a key ingredient in the success of this regional work by letting everyone know that we are recruiting for the Tri-County Planning Body. And this new committee will be responsible for developing a regional plan, reviewing county strategies, and approving and monitoring financial investments. So anyone interested in serving can visit oregonmetro.gov to apply. Please apply. Finally, I want to acknowledge the significant amount of work and time and attention that staff and you, commissioners, have brought to this IGA development. This is a good foundation for our next 10 years. Now I'll turn it over to Tony or Rod to present the details about program rollout and our next steps. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. I want to brief you quickly on what we've done to date as it relates to the Supportive Housing Services Initiative. The Supporting Housing Services Program began, as you know, in July 2021 by initially stabilizing 2 emergency transitional shelter programs. Both of the programs were at risk of ceasing operations without intervention due to the loss of funding. Those 2 programs were Serenity Haven Houses and the Hotel Motel Emergency Shelter Program. I can give you more detail about those if you need those, but I'll move forward given your long day that you've been having so far. Rollout of the first new services occurred already, and that new housing navigation placement and case management services through 5 contracts approved by the board. These 5 contracts total nearly $2.5 million in funding and have the capacity to navigate approximately 100 households into permanent supportive housing and provide supportive housing and case management services for approximately 200 households. Once contracts were executed, HVS staff began matching households with providers to connect them with providers to begin assisting them with either housing navigation and or case management services. These matched households are at various steps of the process to navigate them into housing and or connect them with case managers for ongoing services. Additional details on the status of the population will be provided in our second quarter progress report that we'll bring back to you in February, later in February. As of January 19th, service providers have been matched with 84 households to provide the following services: housing navigation placement and 40 households, supportive housing case management to 84 households, includes the 40 households to be navigated into housing and 44 households already in housing. One last piece, the regional long-term rent assistance is another part of the initiative that we've instituted already. And you have, and basically it's called the Regional Long-Term Rent Assistance Program, created in partnership with the 3 counties and Metro staff, is designed to work like a housing choice voucher, providing permanent rent assistance for extremely low income households as a tenant-based or project-based voucher. This program became operational in November 2021, and as of January 19 has provided assistance to 115 different households. So basically 115 vouchers have been issued to date. Supportive housing program staff coordinated, or next steps we're looking at, supportive housing services program staff coordinated with Washington County and Multnomah County supportive housing services programs to release a tri-county request for programmatic qualifications for supportive housing services. This RFPQ, or this programmatic qualifications piece, closes on January 31st and will be used to create a pool of qualified providers to facilitate future procurements beginning in March of 2022. The supportive housing program is currently preparing its next progress report detailing the work undertaken during the second quarter of fiscal year 2022. The progress report will be presented to the board in February. One last piece, based on the contract goals, so you might have some interest in terms of our LIP, the long-term plan that we have available. Because of the funding just now showing up, how are we going to get to those final outcomes? And so based on the contracts that we put out on the street to date, in the supportive case management, our goal was 200, and we've already contracted for 205. So we're going to exceed our expectations there. The long-term rent assistance program, we were looking at 250, but we've only contracted to date for 200. So we're like 50 short given this time. The short-term rent assistance, because we've focused more on the long-term assistance, rent assistance, we've only contracted for 10 of the 130 potential slots for that goal. So we'll work on that now that we have some additional cash flow. Housing placement navigation, we were looking at 200 and we've contracted to date for 102. Emergency and transitional shelter housing units, we were looking at 65 and we've contracted for 63. So we think even though the funding has been slow coming, we have done as much as we can with what we could, and with your help with the ARPA funding, that's what really gave us the ability to move forward on a lot of these initiatives, even though the funding had not shown up. So that's the end of my report. And if you have any questions, Tony or myself are here to answer those questions for you.
So I'm just going to ask, I do know that Andrew is here as well. Does he have anything to add?
Yes, he does.
Okay. Andrew.
Not to the programmatic piece, no. The only thing I guess I would add, you've seen this draft IGA a couple of times. We talked about it many times. At the last meeting we had on Tuesday, I think Commissioner Savas asked if this was ready to be signed today. It still is. We received a slightly revised draft from Metro this morning. And when I say revised, nothing changed in terms of the language. The exhibits were reformatted a little bit. But we would still request that this board give Chair Smith authority to sign in the event something minor happens after the fact, if the page numbers shift, if there's something off with the exhibit. I don't think that'll happen. And I think the version we received from Metro this morning could be signed today, but if something occurred between now and next week when Multnomah County approves it, we don't want to have to go through the whole process just for something extremely minor or something non-material. So the request is still there, even though I don't expect any further changes from the draft I received from Metro's attorney this morning.
So in your opinion, there's no substantive changes?
No, there was no substantive changes to the IGA whatsoever. It was really formatting the exhibits so they matched how they looked with the other two counties.
Well, thank you so much for that, Andrew. This has been a long time coming, and I would really like to commend all the staff for the hard work you put into this. We are looking forward to having the dollars come in the near future so we can even continue the expansion of this important work. So thanks, Rod. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Andrew. And let's see, I wanted to also thank Tony Carter. So in any case, I'm going to now turn it over to discussion by our board. And I have two hands up. This is a board discussion only. So my ask is, do my commissioners have any clarifying comments or points they'd like to make? Commissioner Fisher and Commissioner Savas both have their hands up. Commissioner Fisher, would you like to kick us off here?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Schrader. Appreciate you stepping in this role. Thank you, Rod, for the overview of all of the great work that has been done. I really appreciate that information. So as we know, since this kicked off in July, there has been a forecast that the bulk of the revenues will come in the last quarter of this fiscal year, which is from April 2022 to June of 2022. And what's expected is our substantial dollars. And so while the other two counties did front load their expected revenue early so that they could get the money out the door sooner in this fiscal year, this board has decided to take a more conservative approach and to wait until the bulk of the dollars are actually received. How will we execute quickly to make sure that we are getting those resources to the members in our community that need them? Or do we need to expect that won't happen? I mean, I think it will be very difficult to do that just practically. And so I'm just wondering what we're doing.
Tony, I'll take this one. So based on our projected numbers on the contracts, we've contracted to get us as close to the annual amount that we agreed to in the IGA. already. So that's one foundation we've already set. We've already put it out there. We've created the capacity to serve the number that we originally intended to. Now, can we do that by June 30 or in the next 6 months? You know, that we'll see. But I think we have the capacity to do that. And so I think that's really the answer to this, is that we now, knowing that the flow of funds are going to come in, we're talking to nonprofits, we have them. And then the other piece would be the regional piece, where we have RFQ that we've done with the region. So that too has allowed us, or created some capacity for us to add new programming, after January 31st, after we've identified some additional nonprofits to do the work. And so I think those are the two pieces that we're banking on to get us the numbers we need, and it looks like we're going to surpass our numbers in some of the areas as it is.
Oh, thank you for that clarification. That really helps. I have appreciated the board listening and respecting staff's recommendation that we create the infrastructure, sort of the bones of the services, and knowing that at least structurally and bureaucratically that capacity has been built in is it'll help me sleep better at night. So Chair Schrader or Vice Chair Schrader, do I call you Chair Schrader or Vice Chair Schrader? What is the appropriate term?
Whatever you'd like to call me. I think Vice Chair.
Okay, Martha. Just kidding.
Hey, Martha.
I don't know if this is the time just for general comments or not.
Well,
or if we're just asking clarifying questions.
I would like to give, if you don't mind, Commissioner Savas a chance to speak, and then if you have more, certainly we'll go there.
Yeah, I have some general comments, and I will save those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Savas. You're on.
Thank you. I appreciate Rod and staff, all the hard work you did. Rod, your presentation and your rollout, your layout of the services we're providing and that we've committed to. Emily and Andrew, Rod, all of you, Tony, thank you so much for months and months of effort on this heavy lift to get this agreement across the finish line. It has been, and just personally speaking, not your fault by any means, but this is it's just gone on too long. And I'm just glad that we're here at this point today where we're hopefully ready to approve this agreement. And the reason that it has been such a big deal for us is that, in April 13th, when we approved the local implementation plan, the LIP, we were basically told that we would have this agreement signed and delivered and completed in June, just a couple months afterwards. And now here we are 7 months later and the agreement is now here. The dollars are, going to be here. Some are rolling in, maybe that might be ramping up a little bit. But one thing that Commissioner Fisher left out, I think is really important. And that is we borrowed $5 million to try to front load. We did front load because we weren't gifted millions and millions and millions of dollars of CARES Act funding that the other two counties received. So I think, frankly, to be truly transparent, we ought to be sharing the fact that we were not in the same fiscal position to front load. Whether you wanted to characterize that as conservative or however you want to characterize it, facts are the facts. And the other thing I want to point out, and then Rod's spot on, and I'll just say it more clearly, staff have indeed, put the bones together to make sure we roll this out, but more so, we have commitments that exceed our revenues. We have placed these people and made commitments that exceed the amount of revenues we have, and we're actually on track, well beyond commitments of $5 million. And frankly, at the pace we're at, double-digit millions actually in commitments that we've essentially made, whether they're financial written commitments or whether they're commitments to the people that are placed. In order for them to maintain their residence, we got to look at that from an ongoing standpoint, and we've actually committed to that. So therefore, I just want to point out that the most important reason, and I want to thank Metro for the loan, But as I shared with you all before, and for those listening today that have not heard this, is that, we wanted to ask for the second loan so we could actually increase the amount of services beyond the $5 million commitment. And that has been held up by this agreement. And I won't say held up, but it has been contingent upon this agreement. That's probably more accurate. I made multiple pleas to Metro and to Metro Councilor Lewis, who I want to personally thank here today, working with her. But they had to give us the 5, contingent upon the agreement. We're here today for any future revenues. So this opens the door for us to make the ask after the oversight committee makes basically a cursory approval, hopefully here soon. And then we can ask for the next 5 while we await the revenues, which it's uncertain what they will be in June, as Commissioner Fisher alluded to. So that'll help us kickstart. So we don't need to wait to June to ramp this up, provided, again, the oversight committee approves our rollout. And we sign this agreement, of course, and then we make the second ask. And I think Metro will just give us basically what they think we need, up to 5 to increase that rollout. So that's why I have been so adamant about this and passionate about this, is that it's on this agreement. It's just been contingent upon, and we're here today. I can't tell you how pleased I am that we're here today. Will support it and hopefully make the motion, or whoever wants to make the motion, I will definitely be supporting this for approval today, for signature. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Shull, have you got anything to add at all?
Yeah, Vice Chair Schrader, my only concern is a question for Rod Cook. In light of the fact that supportive housing services dollars have been sketchy over the last 10 months, in light of the fact that we have loan money out on this, and the potential for the money coming in the next few months also, unless those dollars are in hand, they're just a hope. I don't need an answer right now, but do you and Finance and Gary Schmidt have a plan for financially buffering any shortfall in these supportive housing measure funds in the next 6 months? And Rod Cook, I'll take my answer offline on that.
Well, thank you for saying that, Commissioner Shull. I'm just going to make one comment, a couple of comments quick. Hope is a risk that must be run, and remember that optimism is a force multiplier. So I am hopeful that the dollars will come in and that we will not just meet our expectations in the long run, but exceed them. And I think an attitude of optimism and hope will certainly move us along. And I look forward to seeing the rollout, the full rollout of these programs as we move to help the most vulnerable in our society and in our population. So, all right, I need a motion, ladies and gentlemen. So who wants to move?
I move for approval of the Supportive Housing Services Master IGA.
Second.
Well, I have a motion from Commissioner Shull and an enthusiastic second from both Commissioner Savas and Commissioner Fisher. Thank you very much. Shannon, can you call the poll, please?
Do we need to create a space for discussion?
If there's any more discussion, that should happen first.
Oh, sorry about that, folks. I'm new at this, and I'm not quite so new at this job, but okay, any other discussion?
Commissioner Fisher has her hand raised.
Hands up, go for it.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. I just want to communicate to everyone and really thank Emily Klepper, who, as she took lead from our commission office in negotiating this IGA, in her reaching out and connecting. I believe she connected with each and every one of us. But what I especially appreciated about her reaching out with me is to make sure that the spirit and intent of what happened around those initial tables as to what is the autonomy of the local jurisdictions became part of this intergovernmental agreement. So this Supportive Housing Services IGA reflects that how the services are delivered are determined at the local level. And our planning process for our local implementation plan was vast and broad and included great community engagement that was unique to us. So our plan is Clackamas County centric, and this IGA makes it absolutely clear that we are in the driver's seat on how services will be delivered. And thank you, Emily. I like seeing you in this square because you just rocked it, absolutely rocked it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Emily. Any further discussion, colleagues? Going once, going twice.
Andrew Naylor, then Commissioner Savas.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I can go last.
Okay, Commissioner Savas, why don't you go ahead? And then Andrew, you can do the follow-up.
Yeah, looking forward, I just want to just state, you've heard me say this again, but we always have different audiences, and but as we roll these dollars out, I want, of course, we all want to make sure that and I think people expect that we have a responsibility to obtaining or having positive outcomes, measurable outcomes that actually can demonstrate and help and make a visible difference out in our communities. So that's paramount. I will say that, and again, I'll repeat, I've heard me say this before, that some emphasis where however the committees are done or however who decides how we spend or future LIPs or work plans, that we actually make an investment, whether in Clackamas County or in this region, for centers or facilities that help people detox from drug or alcohol abuse, or behavioral health or mental health facilities. There are people out there, and we know this. This is coast to coast. This is no secret that there are people on the street that are in need in order to sustain themselves and to get themselves back and to get a lift back into society. Need to get themselves the proper treatment necessary for them to be successful. That key building block is not in place in this region. We have heard from our emergency responders, police and fire, who that's not their line of business, but it has become their line of business. And meeting them on the street, not having a place to take someone who actually has to be detoxed because there are no facilities or very few facilities available. This is important, and I'm just hoping that this board, whether by motion or whatever in the future, can make some kind of a legislative ask or a regional ask, or consider options or a work session on how we make that a prominent effort in this county or in this region. So with that, again, thanks to everyone involved. Those are my comments. I'm excited. I'm ready to vote.
Okay, let's let Andrew have the last word, Commissioner, and then we will call the poll. Andrew.
Commissioner Fisher's hand is raised.
Oh, Commissioner Fisher.
I just want to second Commissioner Savas's request for a deeper dive on what he mentioned, and that makes two of us. So now we have to have a policy session. I'm done.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Thank you, commissioners. Andrew, back cleanup, buddy.
Thank you. Just one suggestion for the board to consider, just given the concern I raised earlier about non-substantive changes, and that would be approving the IGA provided in substantially the form attached to your materials and delegating authority to the chair to sign it, provided no material changes are made from the version that this board is considering.
Do we have to redo the motion, Gary, or is this legislative intent enough?
Oh, you're fine as is, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, Shannon, call the poll. Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher.
Hi.
Commissioner Savas.
Hi.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Vice Chair Schrader.
Aye, it is approved, and wow, yeah, yay.
Thank you, commissioners.
Fantastic. Oh, it's been a long haul to get this far. I'm glad we're finally there, folks, and it's only going to get better. Gary, what's next?
Thank you, staff. Well, your meeting's just about you're at the halfway point now, commissioners. I'm kidding. All right. But you still have more business. Next is the consent agenda, a lengthy consent agenda. I'll ask Shannon if you will please read the consent agenda.
Okay, wait a second here. I got to get my script, folks.
You're fine, Chair. Shannon, just go ahead, please.
Just go ahead.
Can you see the consent agenda?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Thank you for validating that. First up is County Council, approval of a settlement agreement in the case of estate of Brian Perry v. Clackamas County et al. Total agreement is $300,000 funded by the County Risk Fund, some of which is county general funds. Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of a contract with LifeWorks Northwest for early assessment and support alliance services. Maximum contract value not to exceed is $1,397,100.24. Funding through State of Oregon Community Mental Health Program funds. No county general funds are involved. Approval of amendment number 3 to a contract with Julie Wood, LCSW, for involuntary commitment program court examiner services. Amendment adds $6,000 to contract, increasing the maximum value to $39,000, funded through county general funds. Approval of amendment number 03 to a contract with Northwest Family Services for drug and alcohol pre-engagement and prevention activities. Amendment adds $51,140.07 to the contract, increasing the maximum value to $204,560.30. Funds through the State of Oregon, Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Approval of amendment number 02 to a contract with the Inn Home for Boys, doing business as True Housing for Alcohol and Drug-Free Housing. Amendment adds $23,250 to the contract, increasing the maximum contract value to $93,000. Funding through the State of Oregon, Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Finance Department, approval to accept an amendment to the grant award from the State of Oregon, acting by and through the Oregon Military Department for FEMA 45-62-DR-OR wildfire declaration and straight line winds. This amendment increases the reimbursement rate from 75% to 100% for the period of September 11th, 2020 to October 10th, 2020. Funded through FEMA and administered by Oregon Emergency Management. No county general funds are involved. Disaster Management, approval of a cooperation agreement with Clackamas County and Portland General Electric for using FEMA grant funds in partnership for the Mount Hood Corridor Resilience Project, funded through FEMA 2021 Building Resilient Infrastructures for Communities grant. No county general funds are involved. Approval of maintenance assurance letter for Federal Emergency Management Agency 2021 Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant with Portland General Electric. No direct fiscal impact. Transportation and Development, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Department of Transportation for the use of Bailey Bridge components as temporary detour structure. Total project estimate $942,000. Total reimbursement from intergovernmental agreement is $14,000. Funded through the Damascus Roads Funds. No county general funds are involved. Authorization to purchase 17 2021 Dodge Durango Pursuit all-wheel drive vehicles from Withnell Motor Company through the State of Oregon contract number 1651 for the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. Total purchase value is $594,449.54, funded through budgeted county general funds. That is the end of the general consent agenda list.
Thank you, Shannon. Does any commissioner wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Hearing silence, I am going to ask you to call the poll.
Oh, need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion. Sorry. I always do this. I jump ahead because I always already have the decision in my own head there. Sorry about that, guys. So let's get a motion.
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Schell has made the motion and Commissioner Fisher has seconded it. So now we call the poll. Thanks, Shannon. Go for it.
Do we need to create a space for any further discussion?
Any discussion, folks? We're all ready to move ahead. Okay, let's go.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye. Oh, sorry.
I did it out of order. Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Schrader.
Okay, aye. It is approved. Thank you. Gary, what's next?
If you would now convene as the North Clackamas Parks Board, please, Chair.
All right, I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board. Okay.
Next up is the consent agenda for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Shannon, would you please read the consent agenda?
Approval of addendum to lease agreement of Clackamas Elementary School buildings and grounds between North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and Cascade Heights Charter School. This addendum extends the lease through June 30th, 2023. Lease revenue in fiscal year 21-22 is $134,040 and increases 5% annually. Funded by Cascade Heights Charter School. No county general funds are involved. That is the end of my list, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Does any commissioner wish to remove any items? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
Been moved by Commissioner Savas and seconded by Commissioner Shull. Shannon, will you call the poll, please?
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Shull.
Aye.
Vice Chair Schrader.
Aye, it is approved. I will now adjourn as the North Clackamas Parks and Rec District Board and convene as the Board of Water Environment Services. Shannon, can you read the consent agenda, please?
Go ahead.
Approval of a resolution allowing the reduction of interest collected on certain existing assessment for water environment services. Resolution will allow a write-down of approximately $9,528.75 in uncollected interest, subject to the exact timing of repayment. Funded through West monthly service charge revenues, no county general funds are involved. That is the end of my list, Vice Chair.
Thank you, colleagues. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? No? So, hearing none, no discussion, so should we call the poll?
Need a motion?
Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Motion? Okay, call. You, I'm rusty at this, you guys. Holy cow.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Commissioner Savas and seconded by Commissioner Shull. All right, we've got it. So let's call the poll, Shannon.
Commissioner Fisher.
Aye.
Commissioner Shull.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Vice Chair Schrader.
Aye, the motion is approved. Okay, what's next, Gary?
You'll please reconvene as the Board of Commissioners Chair.
Okay, I will now reconvene as the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners. Thank you, everyone, for being so patient with me. I really appreciate it. So we are reconvened as the Board of County Commissioners. And what's up, Gary?
Next up is public communication. Would you like me to read the note there, Chair, or would you like to do it?
You go ahead.
Okay. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business, which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the board is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon revised statutes and county code. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. A reminder, you may submit email submissions for public communication to bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. However, they will not be read during the business meeting due to time constraints. And now is the time for public testimony. Shannon, can you please let us know how many people have registered in advance?
For this section of the meeting, I have 5 people registered in advance, and it looks like there are some hands raised.
Great. So Chair Schrader, you have the option if you want to limit the time or still allow everyone to have 3 minutes. We've had a long meeting today, but there's only 5 speakers. So how much time would you like to allow for each speaker?
At this point, I think we can allow the 3 minutes, assuming that we don't have too many folks who are unregistered. If it becomes too onerous, then we can reduce the time, but I prefer to give people their full amount of time if we can.
Very good.
Okay, so Shannon, who do we have up first?
First up is Carrie Cressap. Carrie, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, board, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hello, I'm Carrie Cressup and I'm in 97068. And I am speaking today because I am concerned about the performance that I saw on the 13th of January. When cameras were off there was some commissioners, and excuse me if I'm emotional, because I am emotional. I have not spoke to my family in 2 years because of what's going on in our society. The news is reporting that I am a terrorist, a white supremacist, and a Nazi, which is completely untrue. So the reason I am calling right now and talking to you guys is to be on the record saying that this community is in shambles. There's mental illness. It's so absolutely sad. We have people hurting that aren't working, that aren't talking to their families. We have mothers that aren't seeing their grandkids. It's a mess. And to watch you guys last week sit when you didn't think the cameras were on, talk about the mental state of the people in that room. Now, there's a lot of fringe groups. I don't know who was there. I don't know what happened, but I can tell you as an American citizen, not represented by any group or party, I am very, very frustrated. There's a group of us that are very, very frustrated, and we're not threatening violence. What we're threatening is using our brains, our authentic selves, our creativity to get our state back. And, that's pretty much all I have to say. You guys are a disgrace. I watched one commissioner on this meeting pick her nose to her fingernails on a professional board meeting. It's very sloppy, very mediocre. The mediocrity is unbelievable. You guys are more concerned about your own family's health and talking about that while people were sitting there suffering because they have not seen their families. I miss my family. I want this to stop. We are not terrorists. And it's just what you guys have done is helped out with the media, the mental state, and it's going to come across this country, and we're going to take this country back. And I know a lot of you are related by your political campaigns, are connected with companies that have done the campaigns. You guys are connected, you guys are organized, and your act on the screen doesn't fool any of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Who's up next, Shannon?
Next up is Chris Waller. While I bring Chris Waller in, if anybody else would like to speak and you did not have the opportunity to register, you may raise your hand. Chris, you are up. Please unmute yourself and state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Chris Waller, Jennings Lodge. It was 1 year ago last week that Mark Shull's true nature was revealed as Clackamas County citizens were horrified and repulsed by the exposure of his racist and xenophobic Facebook posts. I want to remind you of what we've seen in the intervening year. 3 minutes is not nearly enough time, so this is not an exhaustive list. On January 13th, he was asked by this entire board to resign and refused. On March 4th, he attempted to disband the Veterans Advisory Council after they criticized his behavior. On April 26th, he visited homeless camps, unmasked, and soon after, photos and videos of these people were posted on Support Mark Shull without the permission or knowledge of the people involved. He then stated that every homeless person he met was on drugs and that they needed to be sent to military bivouacs. Organizations had to demand that the photos were removed and stated that he perpetuated stereotypes that many have of homeless people. On April 29th, he called for people to disobey COVID regulations, and on April 30th, he promoted an anti-mask rally. On June 1st, he introduced a vaccine passport ban that compared being asked to wear a mask if not vaccinated to the Jim Crow laws that led to segregation, lynchings, and the systematic disenfranchisement of Black people. After refusing to back down from his absurd and offensive stance, even after every other Clackamas County commissioner expressed their disgust and dismay at his rhetoric, Commissioner Shull was rightfully stripped of his county liaison assignments by unanimous vote, since someone so unable to understand the implications of their speech cannot be trusted to serve as the voice of our diverse county. He openly cheered on the vaccine deniers, conspiracy theorists, and anti-mask zealots who took over the June 10th business meeting and encouraged them to return. He stated that this blatant violation of decorum and sanity was the first time he enjoyed being a commissioner. On September 19th, he posted a meme comparing COVID restrictions to the Holocaust and once again was censured. On November 10th, Shull egged on the right-wing pressure groups that have been overwhelming local school boards, calling on parents to regain control and really get active and promoting links to right-wing pressure groups. And last week, while anti-mask zealots again took over this meeting, Shull joined them in the audience while the other commissioners were restarting a virtual meeting. It's been reported that he addressed them later as well. The majority of decent citizens who will not tolerate this behavior has not gone away. We have worked together and gotten stronger, and hopefully this sad chapter in Clackamas history will soon be closed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate your testimony as I appreciated Carrie's testimony. Who's up next, Shannon?
RJ Cook is up next. RJ, please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, Rick Cook, Stafford area. It's that time of year, Vice Chair Schrader, so there's no tomatoes to throw at you today, but I would like to actually give some kudos to some of the staff members. Starting off with Ellen Roglin and John Hangartner they have come out to Stafford numerous times and talked to us about the project that's using our vehicle registration fee. That is something that actually works, and that they have engaged with us and took our input, and they've just done a marvelous job. So I want to let you know how much you should appreciate what they do. And also Mike Besner, who's been working with us on some issues with our surrounding municipalities when it comes to roads and things out here. And also PGA. I'm on a couple different committees there, and just there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes that maybe a lot of people don't appreciate. So it's kind of like that duck where you see it going through the water and you think, God, it's just gliding there, but you don't see how fast their feet are moving under the water. So they do a great job. And then the last one is somebody that I've got to know for over the past probably decade or so, that used to work in PGA and is now happens to be the county administrator. Gary's done a great job, and it's been so cool to see him mature over the years out here and done such a great job. He came out and spoke with the Stafford Hamlet a week ago, and I've had so many comments go, God, Gary's so good, and we're so lucky to have him. So wanted to leave you with a little, I know it's been a long day for you, but there's such good things going on out here, and yeah, there's some bad things, but we're going to get through that. So appreciate what you do and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Rick, for the encouragement. All right, who's up next, Shannon?
Up next is Mike Weber. Mike, please unmute yourself. State your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Michael Weber, Jennings Lodge. Thank you, commissioners, and Happy New Year. I would like to talk about a few things that were brought up at the business meeting 2 weeks ago. With regards to the county's vaccination rates, over 78% of adults 18 years or older have received at least one dose of the vaccine that's been available for over a year now. That leaves over 21% unvaccinated, and that is far too many at this stage in the game. Even more disturbing is the fact that almost 75% of adults have not received their booster shot. These numbers leave the county at a much greater risk for our medical services to be negatively affected. In fact, in some areas of this country, this has led to rationing of healthcare and triage decisions on who should be treated and who should be left to die. Prior efforts have been made to forward misguided motions to relieve healthcare workers from their requirement of getting vaccinated, a requirement that the Supreme Court of the United States recently ruled was constitutional. This politically motivated effort was couched under the misleading label of caring about our healthcare workers. If one truly cared about our healthcare workers, one would be working on ways to reduce their workload and stress, such as reducing the number of unvaccinated Clackamas County citizens who could potentially become critically ill patients that would fill our hospitals to capacity. Every effort from the top down should be made to encourage our citizens to get vaccinated and not provide a breeding ground for this virus to mutate. It also appeared that some commissioners were more concerned about when the current Omicron variant would peak in their eagerness to get back to normal. They seem to fail to recognize that the spike in infection rates is a precursor to a spike in hospitalization rates. The rate of infection of the Omicron variant is far greater than Delta. So even though the variant appears to be less severe, the sheer numbers of infections could mean that more people require hospitalization. And the high point of the Omicron peak does not mean the end of COVID. It simply means the end of this variant phase. Who knows when the next variant will come and if it will be more infectious and or more virulent than the previous variants. This is not a time to relax our vigilance. It is time to redouble our efforts to get our population vaccinated. Equally troubling is that some commissioners are openly advocating for scientifically unsound and counterproductive quackery, such as homeopathic remedies, which, in their opinion, perhaps they heard it in their echo chamber, they felt were effective. Let's leave the medical advice to the well-informed H3S professionals, and please keep our uneducated medical opinions to ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for coming today. Okay, Shannon, who's up next?
That is the end of my list today.
Okay, so process check here. Do we have other raised hands that we would be listening to right now? Folks who want to speak?
No one has raised their hands currently, and so our list is now complete.
Okay, great. So I guess now we go to Commissioner Communication. It's been a long morning. Who would like to go first? Oh, wait a minute. I have a list here. Let me do that. Commissioner Savas, you're up first.
Thank you, Vice Chair Schrader. It has been a long day. And I'll keep my comments brief. I just want to thank everyone, citizens included, everyone who spoke for their decorum and their respectful behavior today. It's been pretty nice. It's been a long meeting, and I will conclude my thoughts there and wish everyone a great weekend.
Thanks, Commissioner Savas. Okay, next up is Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Vice Chair Schrader. Yes, it has been a long meeting. I do want to just make a quick comment. We did not have a COVID update today, but Philip did give us, all of the commissioners, and I know it's online, a very detailed snapshot of where we are right now and what's coming down the pike. I really, Philip, if you're listening or if anybody can tell him, I really appreciate the narrative. On a personal note, as many people know, my daughter lives in a foster home with 5 full residents, and there's a COVID outbreak where 3 of the residents have COVID. My daughter is not showing symptoms now, but last night, as a support to the foster home, I went driving around Clackamas County looking for tests, and I drove far and wide, and I got signs, no COVID tests. So I just want to mention that to my commissioners. This is a real concern for congregate care and group homes. Philip's report addressed it. In that report, it says that there are tests coming for just those types of facilities. I really appreciate that. And for all of those folks out there that are struggling with this, we know it, we feel it, and we are doing all that we can at the local level to get more vaccinations, more boosters, more tests, and to manage as best as possible what we can for this Omicron surge. And that's all I have for today. Thank you, Vice Chair Schrader.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Fisher, and thank you for telling people current information from our Public Health Department is online. Commissioner Schull.
Yes, good afternoon. I have got a couple pages of comments here, but I look at the clock, it's 1:15. We have other schedule items coming up really soon, so I'm just going to skip to the end of my comments. And that is, I like to say thank you to the members of Clackamas County who over the last year have participated in our government by making your opinions known through letters, emails, phone calls, testimony here at our business meeting, and over cups of coffee to discuss your concerns. That's been very helpful, and I urge every citizen of the county to continue to contact me or another commissioner with whatever is on your mind. I look forward to hearing from you all. And finally, thanks, and may God bless this nation, our county, and your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schull. Yes, it has been a long day today, so I'm going to be brief. I've been reading, just want to share something with you. Desmond Tutu died December 26th. So I started to read his book on forgiveness. And if you can get a copy of it, I think it's something maybe we could all use right now. As we heard today, people are upset from all areas of this county. And we as commissioners are under great duress and trying to really deal with the public health issues, trying to deal with wildfires, ice storms, all the kinds of things that have hit us this year. And it is understandable that people are out, unhappy. And Rick alluded to it. He said, I have a saying that sometimes it's your job to take the tomatoes. And that is sometimes what we're elected to do because we're the folks that are standing on the front lines with our constituents. And sometimes we have to deal with harsh criticism and sometimes we get praised. And that just comes with the job. But I just want to do a quote from Desmond Tutu because I think this is important for all of us to remember. There is nothing that cannot be forgiven, and there is no one undeserving of forgiveness. So let's try and move forward with grace and light to the best of our ability, given the struggles that each one of us, every one of us is facing during these times. So thank you all. It's a pleasure serving with you, and I will adjourn the meeting.